Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today.
But with most jobs, when you go, especially in the incident command side of it, like if you turn up and there's a raging fire, water on the fire, fire out, go home. When you turn up to a job and you're not sure, and the alarm, the detector's in a void area where you can't quite get to, and everyone's like, if you were honest to yourself, you'd say, well, peer to peer, I wouldn't have done anything different, and I could have got caught out with the exact same issue. So how the hell do you sit there as like judge and jury, and you're like, what would you have done?
Yeah.
Well, I'd have probably stuck the rods up, saw it was clear and gone. It's a fine art, isn't it? And we don't always get it right, but we damn well try, don't we?
Yeah.
Today's episode was once again brought to you by William Wood Watches. With the tagline, once forgotten, now reborn, every single watch has 100 years of firefighting history in it. They take an original Merryweather brass firefighter's helmet worn by firefighters in Britain in the 1920s and melt it inside every single William Wood watch. All of the craftsmanship is carried out in the heart of London, and they are proud to lock in the legacy of the brave firefighting heroes in every single timepiece. I think one of my favourite things about these watches is the fire hose straps. Now, these have gone from landfill to effectively luxury now. They receive fire hose from a massive amount of fire services from all around the world, which has come to the end of its life. The majority of the fire hose around the world is unfortunately ends in landfill usually. They clean the hose, repurpose it, and sew it into the luxury watch straps themselves. I always wear the red one, but when you get your watch, it comes with a series of different ones you can get. You can explore the full range of upcycled straps on their website, and you can see the link in the episode notes. If you head over to their website, you'll be able to check out the Jubilee, the Triumph, the Valiant, the Bronze, and the Chivalrous. All of those watches are available right there, and you can spread the cost of these over 3 to 6 months interest free. So for the pulse of the fire service right there on your wrist, head over to williamwoodwatches.com and take a look.
There's an aspect there about the I forget how it was described. I forget if it was Serena Cohen-Hatton's book, where she speaks about those million sort of unknown indicators that are really visceral, and because you can't think at the speed at which your mind is processing, as in us consciously, we can't process everything that our mind is processing. So when I walk into this room and it's a bit hot or it's a bit whatever, my mind goes through the files so fast and go, what does this hot room mean? Yeah. And it's taking all my senses, it's taking my hearing, it's taking my sight, it's taking everything, and going, okay, yeah, dot against that, there's a dot against that, dot against that. And then it's getting all these dots and going, right, pull them out. Okay, from all of this, I'm looking at a trend. I'm going, okay, it's outside, it's hot in this room, there's aircon, there's whatever. And then it gives me what it thinks is a logical answer. I can't really unpick that because it's so fast. And the example that woman she gave, I think it was her, was firefighters exiting a building seconds before the floor gave way because they were in a ground floor building and they were gas cooling, but there was no effect. They could see a fire in the corner, gas cooling, having no effect. And they're moving into the room a bit more and it's getting hotter and they can't really understand it. And there's a leading hand there and he goes, no, we're going out. We're going out. Right. Yeah. So they withdraw from the building and as they start, it's not responding to anything. And seconds later, it collapsed, and it was a fire in the basement that had broken through the floor. They didn't know it was a basement. Looking at the front of the house, you see the pictures. It doesn't look anything like it. But he was like, I'm doing all of these things, and my mind is, I don't know what it is happening, but this isn't matching that. And my mind is saying, now wait a minute, get out. We didn't feel in danger. It says it wasn't too hot to be there. The ceiling wasn't falling in, but I just felt something's not right here. And those things really fascinate me.
They do that on the out course.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they take you, so they give you loads of input, and then they take you around one afternoon. This is what they used to do, I don't know if they do it anymore. And they go, there you go. You've got to get to that window and that window, because there's a fire on the top floor. Where would you pitch? A bit pacing. I'd put it here, because then I can go there, and I won't have to re-pitch, and I can achieve both of them targets, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, come and have a look at this. Come round the corner. Basement here, visually, all day long, big old factory building, ground looks like concrete, blah, 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 blah. No, you can't pitch here, because of the rules of 18 tonne on top of that,
And
now
the
fueled
rest
everyone.
as well, because they're getting heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to London about the high reach stuff that they've got. I've seen
Well,
reach
everything's
towers that
changed,
they've
isn't it? You know, like 10 years ago, no one had a harness.
got. Yeah.
You know, we all scoff at each other here, like, you know, when you just kind of like, you go on the headrest and you're like, oh, just bring it down onto the ground. No hard hat on, what's going to hit me on the head?
Yeah.
Because again, like you say, that processing thing, well, I know nothing's going to hit me on the head.
Yeah.
But we live in a world of litigation. And if anything was to ping off the Alp, a hose was to burst, and it hit you on the head, well, did you have your helmet on? That I provided to you for free.
Yeah.
This is what, and this is the interesting bit. You know, when people talk about them over the road, you know, that classic kind of them over the road. Yeah, well, it's not being an arse. They're actually trying to protect you. Peel back your bravado. Peel back your, well, I don't like him because he does a job that I wouldn't want to do, and he's just being a job's worth. And I actually peel it back and go, what is he doing it for? Doing it because he wants to look after you.
Probably scared to death most days. He's like, oh God,
yeah,
I hope they're all right. God, I hope they're all right. It's like letting
Yeah.
your kids.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to my mate's house. Oh, you're going to Johnny's house. There's got sharps everywhere, and he's
I
the
really
one
want
where
you
they
to
had
go
fireworks go off in the lounge.
But
You're going
again-
to Johnny's house.
But again, we're only able to process that better because we're a bit older.
It's that burden of knowledge a little bit, isn't it?
Of course it is, yeah, but we're all bulletproof when we're 20 years old. In my little 1.3 Fiesta Escort whizzing back to Germany at 115 mile an hour, thinking, I'm like Ayrton Senna. I can drive one-handed because I've had 3 weeks of tuition.
Yeah.
Honest to God, I can't be any better a driver.
I've watched Fast and Furious as well.
I can't be any better a driver in my life than now. Because I've just passed my test with a military driving instructor, and I drive in Germany where they drive on the wrong side of the road. So I'm even better a driver than everybody else.
Have you been to the Autobahn? Watch us go!
Yeah. So, like, driving over here, we are the world's best at everything. When we're young, when we're in the fire service, when we've done a blue light driving course, because we just think that we've now got these skills that make us like Spider-Man. You know, and now not in this service, scared of heights until he put his fire kit on. Because the perception of him, he couldn't be scared of heights if he was a firefighter because he was big and tough. So, because it was like if
You know what? You make a great point about about parenting. When you become a parent, if you're scared of spiders or whatever, and then your daughter's got a spider in her bedroom, you can't be the victim anymore. You have not got the privilege of being the victim because you've got to be the hero now because you're the parent.
I'll pick him up.
And then all of a sudden you're like, I better do that then. You know, I remember him giving an analogy of going on a cable car, and this woman was petrified of going on the cable car, and her friend was like, "Oh, come on, you can do it. You're fine. You're fine." And then we were waiting to get on it. There was two parents with a little kid who was absolutely shaking. You know, so when they got on there, she didn't feel like she was allowed to be the victim for what. Even she was like making eye contact with the kid. She's like, "It's okay." You know,
But so
we'll
many
be all right.
parents, they create anxiety towards a situation because they don't like it. I don't swim. I don't like swimming. So you won't swim.
Yeah. I knew someone that drowned once. Yeah, I don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's I think I remember it from what was that Coast Guard film with Kevin Costner? Might just be all Coast Guard.
Oh, and what's his name?
Young lad.
Aston Kutcher.
Yeah, and they said
Rescue swimmer.
bravery isn't the absence of fear; it's the realization there's something more important at risk. You know what I mean? So
you're
your
good at remembering shit,
kids
right?
is a great example where they're like, you're not scared, but you realise there's something more important at risk. Like you gave the analogy of that guy, you know, with the firefighting kit. I'm not scared, but I'm like, there's something greater at risk. I have a purpose. I have a thing that is expected of me. So that is gonna, that identity of me at this moment in time in fire kit is going to overtake that, and I'm going to be that.
So
person.
look at last night. Pete, come pick that dead body up. What? Cold, like cold start, no adrenaline, no premise or anything like that. Go and pick that dead guy up. Really? Oh, can't somebody else do it? Right, Pete, we're going to go on a job, gain entry, concern for welfare. Really upset son and daughter-in-law there. You're going to kick the door in. You're going to get all revved up because the door won't let you in, and then you're going to go in, and I want you to tell me if that bloke's dead or not. So I've put my hands on him.
Yeah.
Radial pulse, carotid pulse. It's so cold.
Yeah.
He's stiff.
Rigor mortis.
But if
He's
you
got
said-
pooling and blood under his arms.
If you
like,
said go and touch someone, everyone would be a bit standoffish.
Yeah.
But when you were in, they're looking at you as a
you
professional.
stand for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to do something. You're going to give me the answers. Okay, right, we all need to step out of the building.
Yeah.
Can we just all go outside for a little bit? He just stood there in the corner of the room like that, and it was like really awkward. And kind of like, right, okay, I'm the incident commander here now. I ultimately have the say. How am I going to change the situation? I feel uncomfortable about it because I'm not 100% sure. I'm going, he's dead. Yeah? But I've got to kind of say that in such a way to this guy who's his son, that he's looking at his dad lying on the floor. And he's upset. He's already been upset for him. He's concerned. Okay, let's go outside. Is this a crime scene? Get everybody out. Because then it'll be, well, who did you let in there? Well, let the son in. Well, why did you do that?
Restore process.
Yeah.
How did you know it was his son? Check his ID.
Exactly. Didn't have any ID. He just told me it was. And then I even then questioned one of the neighbours. Okay, you're one of the neighbours. Do you know this guy? Yeah. I've seen him before. Okay. It leans a little bit towards the fact that I don't disbelieve you, but we're in a world of disbelieving people. I've only got to look what's gone on down in Downing Street this week. The world's just full of liars and full of people that have got their own self-importance ahead of them.
Yeah.
And they'll say anything to your face, and you come back, don't you, after, and you go, someone will come in, Pete, come have a word. Yeah, you know that job you went to? Your house fire? Yeah. Did you? I said you put it down as accidental. Yeah. I believed it was the fridge. I said because it was this and it was that. And I spoke to the guy. Were you doing any cooking? No, I'm not doing any cooking. Okay. He said, yeah, put it down as a fridge. Yeah, I get that. That plume and the photos and he goes, you took loads of photos. He said the insurer went down there the next day. Did you do any cooking? Oh yeah. Changed everything. It was an absolute game changer. And I said, he lied to my face. And he said, yeah. And he said, the benefit we have with the information that we had at the time led you to that decision. Most probable cause.
When we talk about trying to bring as much of yourself to work as possible, it's actually really difficult because you've got something going on that you feel doesn't belong here, or because of the type of environment that we set up, you feel can't be brought into this space because there's almost not room for it.
Yeah, but that's perfect. Because my situation was, I was almost allowed to bring some of my problems to work because Paul worked here.
Yeah.
So I was allowed to diffuse some of my problems and shoulder some of that burden on my colleagues, which maybe eased the process.
Yeah,
because if
dissipated the load a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I know this for a fact because when Melanie went back to work, my brother's partner, nobody really knew my brother. So when she went back in, it was like, right, you're back. Right, you got a job to do. When I came back here, oh, hey mate, you're right. Yeah. There was almost like the handbrake wasn't fully on, and you were allowed to talk about it. Let's have a cup of tea. Yeah. But if you go back into the environment where no one knows your previous partner, you haven't got time for a cup of tea. Get on with your job. Compassion is removed a little bit because they have no prior knowledge and understanding of you or your problems and that person. So, like it works perfectly.
It's kind of the whole point of this. You've got to be more interested in the person than you are in the job. Because if you're interested in the person sincerely, it sounds really manipulative, but you'll get far more of them show up at the job. You'll get far more of the human being show up at work, rather than trying to even though they're here, their enthusiasm, their effort, it's a bit like trying to grab it by the shoulder and keep pulling it back in the door. You're like, hey, but if you actually care more about the person and give them that time, it's like the old 80-20 rule. If you spend most of your time interested in the person, you get far more. But if you only spend 20% of the time going, how you feeling today? Yeah, okay, right, we need to get started now, mate. We're like, well, I'm not fully in here yet. So if this is all you want of me, this is all I'm going to give you. Yeah. And I'm going to give you lip service work all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you say, get on for drill, I'm just going to stand there. And then if you say...
My body language is going to tell you everything.
Yeah, I'm disengaged.
It's funny when you say 80%.
I'm basement.
I regard myself as an 80%er.
Really?
I only ever give 80% because I'm holding something in reserve. Effort, energy. In the fire service, we don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
So, gives everything. If you get a redeployment, he's spent.
Yeah.
Yeah, physically, mentally, everything. Where I'm a bit like, just hang back, because what if we get a redirection message? What if we finish that field fire and we've got to go to another field fire? You're no use to me now.
Yeah.
So, And it's a very, very calculate. I'm not saying I'm 20% lazy. What I'm doing is I'm giving 100% effort as such, but I'm just holding a little bit in reserve just in case. So when I did my phase 3 assessment, I've got Lee Skinner chasing me around with a clipboard like that, and he's going, "Oh, Mr. Wilkens, are you tired?" He goes, "Oh, but you look like you're slowing down." Yeah, I am. "Oh, why's that then?" "Well, because I don't know what you're going to throw at me this afternoon, so I'm holding a little bit back in reserve because I know I'm older than everybody else here.
Yeah.
And I know where my body is, so I'm pacing myself now.
Yeah.
Because a couple of steps off gives me a little bit of thinking space. I'll get the job done in a timely fashion. But I am inside just holding back ever so slightly. We went to a job, I jumped over a fence, and I ran round and went through the gateway. And I went, "What are you doing?" And he went, "Well, I just needed to get to the front door." I said, "You jumped over a fence, you could have hurt your ankle. Then you can't go in the front door."
Mate, I had someone jump over a fence and slip on wet decking and really hurt his back.
Yeah.
And we were literally getting 2 pieces of a Triple X ready right next to it. And he was so desperate to try and get in the back door, he leapt over it, missed the pond that was near the decking, thankfully, slipped right on his back.
But I said, "You can't go in without me." And I've gone the slightly longer way, but the safer way, drive to arrive. The power of the mind and ability is quite unique, isn't it? You know, there's a guy out there, he gave up on life, didn't like where he was, and decided, almost a bit like a Forrest Gump analogy, he basically gave all his stuff up and went, "Right, I'm going to run round. I'm going to do Land's End to John O'Groats. I'm going to run it." And then he did his triathlon of Britain, where he ran, rode, and then swam along the bottom of the English coast. Like they did, circumnavigated the thing. But it was like, I shouldn't be able to do this, but I can. And it, like if you said to someone, we're going to do a marathon. "Oh no, I'm not into running." No, you're not into it. You can do it. You're just not into it.
Yeah.
It's where you gain that motivation from.
Yeah.
Like you just said there with the van and your daughter and all that. If you said, Pete, can you run 100 metres in 10 and a half seconds? It's ridiculous, because I know through history Usain Bolt is 9.8, is it?
Yeah, whatever. Something stupid.
So you think, well, 10.5? No, I could probably do it in 12. Yeah. No. It's got to be 10.5 or no good. Right, okay, well, what we're going to do then is we're going to get your daughter and we're going to put her in that van, and if you don't make it, we're going to take her, and you're never going to see her again. Yeah. I reckon I could probably try it then. I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
But if you don't, I probably don't get to the place where you get to and create that scenario.
Don't know if it's healthy to get there all the time, because it's also cost me a lot of injuries. I've torn pecs and popped discs in my back.
Yeah, but
I don't think you should apply it to strength disciplines.
But what did you say though? The tattoo on your back.
Yeah, me versus
You're
me.
you're only against yourself. But it's about stopping those, not demons, but knowing when to give up, knowing when not to give up, knowing when to push, knowing that you're going to be okay.
Knowing your own bullshit as well. Knowing when you can call yourself on your own bullshit. When you're like, I've given my all. And when you get in bed at night, you're secretly like, well, you fucking didn't though, did you?
So
you're
a bit
of a pussy.
Let's go back to the rugby. You'd go there, I'd ring round on a Thursday, are you available, old school, right, ring up. Ridiculous. we moved on to texting, and probably they're on WhatsApp now. But you'd ring someone up and you'd go, hey mate, you're right, yeah. Are you available Saturday? Well, I had that injury at the weekend, and his wife happened to be in the medical profession, and he always had, we'd say, I've got a sore leg, I can't play, but he'd be like, no, I've got a such and such, an injury, and it'd have like a long name.
Yeah.
And it's like, mate, have you like a thesaurus? Like, it's like, got a poorly leg. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I went to see my doctor, and he said I can't play for 3 weeks. Okay. So what? Your doctor's like the end of everything, is he? He just that's finite, and whatever he says, I said, is an orthopaedic surgeon, the man with 2 brains, and I said, how do you feel? I reckon I could play. See you Saturday. We need you.
I have such respect for the NHS.
But the top trumps thing. So if we turn up with 14, what do they think? Bang, we've got an extra card. Yeah, they don't know that you're shit knackered and you've got that long word for your sore leg. Yeah. But if you stand in the gap.
Yeah, and they go, oh fuck. But
they've got to run round you or run through you.
Yeah.
So just come along. Be shit. Nurse your injury. Don't run so fast. Be an 80%er.
Yeah.
You're only in your battle. But without you, we're shit. And that's what I said earlier, didn't I? Shit, and shit makes half decent. Yeah? And we can do this together. And I think the fire service, not to that degree. I'm not saying anybody's shit in the fire service. I'm not saying that.
There's a couple. But no, you're right. They've got skill sets that don't suit sometimes. But anyway,
they might not show their true potential. I think that's probably the
for
truth.
a variety of reasons.
And that's me being very, not politically correct. I'm being nice to everybody because I think everybody's got the ability. They just sometimes don't know how to show it. And
we don't always set the game up for them to win either.
You spoke about, we may come on to this, about leadership and all that, and about extruding from the individual their best. How do you get their best performance? And I kind of, through rugby, through the fire service, through being in the army, I've kind of looked at that, witnessed that, seen different ways that people do things. And, they talk about, as an incident commander, how have you based yourself? How have you become the incident commander you are? And how do you kind of breeze through incidents that I find particularly difficult? But it's only through experience, isn't it? And who you take. So they said, when I was learning my trade and, when I was transitioning from a firefighter to a crew manager, they said, right, well, you're going to go and work, and you've worked with that person, you've worked with that person, you've worked with that person. What do you like about him? What do you like about her? What do they bring to the table? Well, I like the way that they approach that. Okay. I don't like the way. So you dismiss parts of their traits to create you as the incident commander. So one of our colleagues, he approaches, and this is what I spoke to him about this at length, and he was my mentor when I was a probationer and a fabulous firefighter, and somebody I kind of look at and try to emulate, and I wish I was as calm as he could be. Sometimes I get a bit, if I'm vocal, and I'm a vocal person. That's not. There's no denying that. If I get shouty, it's because the shit's about to hit the fan. Command presence and all that, and there's a very, very there's a balance to be struck, isn't there? I'm not shouty for the sake of being shouty. I've been in the military. I know what people are like when they're shouty, and sometimes it just goes over the top, doesn't it? Yeah.
I remember hearing about mums where they say, save your screams. Because you got that friend when you were a kid, and mum's a screamer. The kid leaves the door open, switch off, yeah? Leave the door open, they scream, jam on the side, they scream, and they just ignore her. So when the kid's about to step out into the road and mum screams,
yes,
they ignore her. Because mum's a screamer.
Yeah.
So save your screams,
But so this guy, he goes, I approach every job as though it's an AFA, and he's so calm and he's so collected. But it almost looks like. But I wonder, is he like that swan that he's all serene on the top, but his legs inside are going like Billy
graceful like a dog?
I don't think they are,
fuck.
Because the guy we're talking about, he is just and I think it is about Again, we normalise a lot of things in the fire service. When everyone's got, oh, you're so brave, thank you for what, and we're like, oh, yeah, mate, it was just a shed fire. Oh yeah, but it could have spread to my house. Yeah, but it wouldn't have done, would it? Because we're here and we've got 1,800 litres of water, and
and it's 20 foot down the garden.
I've got 4 or 5 guys here, and again, it's their worst day ever, and you have to realise that, don't you? And you do learn to realise that through experience. And again, I spoke to you earlier when we go. So the traditional shift system is the 2-2-4. And I've been off for 4 days, and I've not seen you for 4 days. And you turn up to work, 7:05, the bells go, house fire, blah 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 blah. But I'm like, oh yeah, but you were on block leave, and I really want to catch up, and because you've just been to Disney, and I'm going to Disney, and I want to know where you went. Because I think I'm going to go there and I want to gain that information, but I can't wait till tea break to get it. So we're driving to, and you maybe got the younger member on the watch who's sat over there and he's prepping, and you can see him and he's going, tunic, gloves, fire, PA set, his my cylinder open, blah, blah, blah.
Oh shit, where's my helmet?
Yeah. And I'm going, Pete, so anyway, the holiday, Nina, whizzing down the street. Yeah. So, holiday, how was it? Oh, mate, and you're driving.
Yeah.
And you think, well, surely he's got to be in the zone. But he's done it that many times, and it's like indicator, mirror signal manoeuvre, blue lights, bang,
moved into
pip,
subconscious,
tones, bang, and it's muscle memory, and it's like, mate, how'd you get on? And you'll give me that précis evaluation of the Disney holiday, enough to satisfy my want to gain that information. And we might, you might meet back, and and then it'll be like, and you look round, and the probationer that's sat there that's maybe not had that exposure has kind of got that fear of God in them, and we're kind of like that. And you pull round the corner, and you present, and it is what it is, and that's kind of what we do in the fire service, don't you?
How do you flex your style between different people then? Because you do have development firefighters at times. You've obviously got different people on your crew of different skills. How do you change gears? And know your audience.
Well, that's part of that evolution to become in my head. When you're kind of, how do I want to be? How do I want to be as an incident commander? I want to be looked at as somebody that has earned his wings. He's been to a job. He's managed this. He's managed that. He's done okay. He's made a mistake there. He's worked on that and he's got there. And I've pulled from the people that I admire, the people that I think that are good managers. I think they have a good style that suits me, and I'm able to take some of that on. And then hopefully in my head, and again, this is only how I feel about it, because I can't think for everybody.
No.
But I think, well, if I instill through all of the work that we do in the fire service, it's not just about the incident ground. It's about how you fill your rotas in, how you check the appliance, how you do a standard test. And this was all taught to me by this person as a probationer. That moulds you and makes you into that person. But as the incident commander or the pump commander, and you're trying to, you've got to cover in, and they've done 3 weeks, and you can see them. They look like a rabbit in a headlight sometimes. And, through your experience and your expertise and your persona, you can bring them into you. And you make that team. Because I was talking to some probationers. So we'd gone to the training school, and there was guys, they'd been away on their residential, they'd come back, and they're all kind of nervous and twitchy, and we'd kind of gone in. We'd gone standby at this other station next to the training centre, and we kind of went in to say hello, because I think it's nice to meet people, and they're joining our gang. We're not joining their gang.
Yeah, that's
and they know that, don't they? They know that, and you can see them. There's that bit of a nervous energy, and you always go. I like to go in, and I guess I'm that outward person that I'm interested in you.
I was going to say it depends why you're going, because some people go sometimes for different reasons.
No. My motivation is because I work a shift system that works across all the watches.
Yeah.
So
I think that's very unique, and I think that really develops you. I wanted to ask you about it.
100%, mate, because I was on Red Watch for years, and then I went to Blue, which is totally opposite, and I didn't know anybody, and that was really freaky. But now, working the system I work, we work across every watch. So
you do 24-hour shifts, so.
Correct, yeah. So we have that ability to work with you, work with him, work with her, work with them, and so we probably widened our ability,
100%.
I think so.
And you get more touch points. You get more fingerprints on you. Yeah. I always say if you're working with Red Watch, this station, that station, Red Watch across the service, it's a maximum number of fingerprints, and they're always getting embedded on you. But when you've got so many, it's a million different touch points, and your self-navigation gets tweaked. Yeah.
And Green Watcher, they're okay, but we're the best.
It's just because of what you heard or what you saw. But when you actually meet that person then on the instant ground, and they do something really diligently, and you go, I tell you what, I saw what you did there. I saw how conscious you were of that. I saw how much effort you put into that. But just because they don't scream about it or it doesn't make it into the report.
But I don't listen to people that say, "Oh, they're shit." Yeah. I take it on face value. So we go there and we're saying hello and stuff like that. And we've got a guy. He's done 32 years. He could have retired 2 years ago. But he's the keenest guy you've ever met. It's like it's his first day. And he's so excited to get on the truck, and it's almost infectious. And he would sit there and he'd say to them, hi, or introduce himself. And he was standing there, right, when you go on station, they're talking about you now.
Yeah.
They don't know you, but they're talking about you now. Who are you getting? Who are you getting? The new guys are coming. And I said, you have a career ahead of you. and they're going to make an assumption about you before you've even turned up, because that's what we do in the fire service.
Let's not pretend otherwise.
No. So you need to go there with a mindset of, I'm going to be the best that I possibly can. You've got some tools, but you're shit.
Yeah.
In the nicest possible way, because you haven't got any exposure.
They're fresh out the plastic. You haven't got anything.
Match up to those skills. And until you can bond some experience and jobs to those skills, you can't expand your portfolio of knowledge. So we sat in there and we were chatting to them, really, nice and not being chest out like I've seen in the military and all that kind of stuff. Look at me, I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. How are you doing, guys? How have you got on? What have you been doing on training school? Oh, you do that now, do you? Oh, cool. Wow, that's changed a little bit since I was there. Well, that's interesting. This, that and the other. And going, yeah, oh, what are you going on? Oh, yeah, I know such and such. Oh, really, really good. You'll enjoy yourself on that watch. If it were me, I'd be first down for drill, always in your books. My mentor used to stand behind me when I'd get like coerced by the watch to, we're watching a film tonight, we're going to chill. And when we're in our stand down, we're going to watch a film, and I'd go, oh, okay, I really want to watch this film. And I'd sit there, and my mentor would come and stand behind me, and he'd go, all right, folder done, is it? Know everything on the pump, do you? And okay then. But he afforded me his time to stand in the appliance bay on the entry control board, running through virtual scenarios, hours and hours of his time, but to make me realise why I was doing the job and why I wanted to do the job and why I loved doing the job. When you go on station, it's your chance to lay your foundations of how you'll be remembered for the rest of your career. Through history, we've seen people that have turned up and they're 30-year firefighters on day one, and they don't answer the phone, and they don't do the kind of, they haven't earned their, in the eyes of the fire service, they haven't earned their wings. They haven't had the house fire persons reported, or where they've witnessed a death, and that shared experience enough to be a part of the team. And this is what we're saying. You have to remember that you're joining their team, their Red Watch, whatever station, and you're their new guy. They want to pick your brain. They want to find out about you, but you're joining their team. You're not going there, and you've got to be you, but you've got to understand what you're joining and why you're joining it. And that's what we're saying, go there with an open mind, be keen, be a sponge.
That's what I mean. That's where you've got to be interested and enthusiastic, because even things like making tea, and I know some places but I'm like, so what do you want to do then? You don't want to make tea or whatever, you don't want to join in on that, but what do you want to do? Well, I want to learn and stuff like that, don't I? I want to do, okay, how are you going to learn? Well, I want them to teach me. Okay, are they going to teach you? Well, I don't asking people. I want them to tell me stuff, Okay, so you might not want to do this thing, like make somebody a brew, yeah? That's going to lubricate the lips of the person you want information from. So if I said, Si, do you want a brew? Can we sit down and talk about this? Yeah? I'll go and do that, yeah? And I'm just going to sit, and that's the whole idea of the podcast type, because how much have you learned from sitting at a watch table, or sitting down with a person, or standing at the back of the fire engine, or sitting in the back of the thing, or sitting at a stack fire, and someone just talks to you for an hour about a thing, or about a job they went to, or about why they like a certain piece of kit, or why they think another one's better, and you just listen, yeah? Well, for them to do that, they want to, but it's a chicken and egg thing. They've got to see that you're really interested. No one likes to speak. We've all done it. Spoken to people that aren't interested. You know what I mean? Spoken to an audience where they're, and you're like, you're probably doing it because you have to. You don't. But for them, you've got to go first. These people do want to tell you stuff.
Yeah.
Their favourite subject is probably what they do and themselves.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you ask them, but you've got to be willing to lean in. You've got to at least come halfway. Most people, you don't have to go halfway. Show me 30% and I'll come 70%. I will.
Yeah.
But you've got to show me 30, at least.
Yeah. And again, it sets out who and what you are. And then, our service have run round robins, and then they've not run round robins, and then they give you a little bit more time to bed in and stuff. But when they've then moved, the managers talk to the other managers, And there's always that preconception of, oh, well, you were getting such and such. Yeah, well, he was terrible. You know, she didn't do this. She was lazy on the fire ground. You know, when I say lazy, it's about energy when we go to a fire, isn't it? You know, we have, you know, historically, people in the other emergency services will say that we're the snooker playing, sleeping, video watching, lazy buggers.
Water fairies that turn up and just faff about.
But we're reactive, aren't we? We're not proactive in our work. Now, you know, I don't mind having a laugh and a joke like anybody, but when it's game time, it's game time. You know, and I spoke about chatting on the pump about what you did on holiday. That's just us normalising stuff. But, like, I went to a job last night, and quite often, you know, the crew are going, what we got, you know, and as the incident commander, you're going to read that tip sheet out. And when it's in your head, a nothing job, you don't really pay a massive amount of attention to the task, let's say. You know, it comes out in the tip sheet, the profile of the job that you're going to, or what they perceive the job to be, the address, and any other information, where the calls come from and stuff like that. You know, and if you're going to, yesterday I went to a high-rise, and it was the second time we'd been there that day. So all of a sudden we're normalising that really back to, where are we going? Yeah, we're going to such and such a place that we went earlier. Yeah. We lessen what we believe to be the job that we're going to. But last night, it was a concern for welfare. We're going to gain entry. And when I'm reading it and I'm dismissing information, this one grabbed my attention to the point where I knew I had to stop the chat en route to say, they need some pre-warning. I can't let them walk into this job cold. And I just went...
What was it about it that stood out to you?
There was the guys in fire control, that they have the ability to write some free text in there. So this was information that they'd get
comment from the caller, note from this.
Correct. Yeah. So the caller
ambulance has said.
Yeah, the caller had kind of suggested, I'm concerned for the welfare of one of my family members.
I had one where the parents hadn't spoke to the daughter in 5 days, and they usually ring her every night, and it said that on the bottom of the sheet. This
was the bit that, and I'll be brutally honest, mate, I'm getting goosebumps now. It said out of character. And I don't like that.
It's a very...
And again...
Hands up, yeah.
I've spoken about...
Isn't it?
I believe that I'm time served enough. I'm not the finished article, I do believe that. But I'm time served enough to know that there's not many jobs that I would be sent to, and I'm not pretending that I'm Spartacus or anything like that faze me, put me out of joint, or twist me up, or I don't think that I'd lack that ability to deal with the toolbox that I've got available to me. And I'm, like I say, I'm not trying to create an elitist role. I've said to you, I'm an 80%er. Yeah. I'm not about that, but I know I've got that ability. You know, look at Taken. I've got a particular set of skills. I do believe that I've got that, and it's only because of the foundations from my mentor and my watch that I was working with, and blah, 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 blah. So this said, concern for welfare, blah, 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 out of character. And I just went, guys, let me just read this to you verbatim. Yeah. And I don't often do that.
And you've got to have people with the emotional maturity to be able to receive that.
I'm finding out about a roller coaster at such and such. Yeah.
By listening, and everyone just leans forward.
Yes. Command presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, you said there, so how do you adapt your style for the new guy and the unknowns?
Yeah.
So if you got somebody comes covering because you've got sickness, and you get so in the fire service, we move our resources to suit the conditions. So if somebody books sick for whatever reason, we may get a firefighter from a different shift, from a different watch. They might be coming in on overtime, so you might have an
on-call or retained person.
Yeah.
You know, that's only been in a job a week, and they've never had a job.
So, as the receiving officer, you would have a quick chat with them, maybe a quick 10 minutes. And again, using that level of a cup of tea, come on, mate, let's go and get a brew. Tell me about yourself. And you'll gauge, through experience, what they're about. You may even know about them.
Yeah.
through that we talk about everyone. Rightly or wrongly, we do that because we want to create that team.
Yeah.
We don't want to, we only go with 4 here on a pump, and that might be alien to people to think that that big red fire engine has only got 4 people on it to deal with it.
Well, obviously,
And we can't
in the
go
service
with
I
3
belong
and a
to, we
half.
go on some that have got 2.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a different argument.
It's an old scary election
That's
sometimes.
a deeper argument, maybe not for today.
Yeah.
But we want them to integrate into our team very, very quickly. So you make all those inroads, and again, it's about how you welcome people, and we're there to do a job, and you'd like to think that they've turned up to do that same job. And it was quite funny actually, because that firefighter I was telling you about that's done 32 years, we had a manager sickness, so we had a manager that turned up, and he turned up and was like, oh, I've got such and such a work to do and I'm really busy, and one of the firefighters turned around and said, well, you shouldn't have accepted the overtime then. If you've got that work to do, you shouldn't be here, because we want you to be here and be our figurehead and lead us when we need you. Forget that shit. You're here in charge. Be in charge. And that kind of goes to everything, isn't it? Game face. The bells go. Right, we're not dicking around. We're not, this is it. Someone needs us. They've got to the point in their life where they've gone, I've tried this, I've tried that. 999 is my only option. And they've rung 999 and they've gone, who do you want? Police. No, I don't need the police. Ambulance. Well, no, I don't think I need an ambulance. We'll just ask the fire service to come. We turn up, 355 items on the fire engine, make shit happen.
We're the everything else, aren't we?
We're kind
you
of
know
the Swiss
very
Army
specifically what the police do.
Yeah.
Am I being attacked, or do I think I'm going to be attacked? No. Am I dying? No, I don't need the ambulance. What is it? It's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll send a fire service.
Yeah. I had someone there that the locks got super glued.
Yeah.
And we gained entry. We got in, we proved who it was, and we let them in and said, look, you just need to change your lock. Well, what about the glue in the lock? Well, if you want to ring the police, ring the police. That's their job. I don't know why someone's put super glue in your lock. I've just got you in your house.
Yeah.
We do what we do, don't we?
Yeah.
But, I don't know, it interests me about the whole team building, how people sit within that team.
How does it differ from when you were in the military? What made you want to start either of them? When you were younger, why did you ever want to even go down the front? Because you could have, obviously you've got a great background in construction.
The military's an easy answer. My dad was in the military. My family were all in the military. I lived you were called a pads brat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you live on bases and military accommodation?
Yeah. And
it's all. Did you move around at all?
Yeah. God, yeah. I lived in Germany for the first 5 years of my life.
Wow.
And then we came back to the south of England and lived around there. But yeah, everything I did was playing war, and I wore one of my dad's caps. That was my go-to hat, and my dad was a tank driving instructor, and we would go to his garage and be around the tanks and be around military families and stuff, and it was the only way I was going to go. My brother had joined the army a couple of years before me, and I kind of I don't know when, but very early on, I'm going to be in the military. What
characteristics do you think a childhood like that gave you, differing from whatever, a postman, someone that works at Tesco's, someone that if your mum or dad had been an accountant or a TV presenter?
I don't honestly think I've consciously thought about that, but I think I was proud of my dad and his position and the fact that he wore a uniform and he looked smart. And if I think about it now, I thought my dad looked smart. I can remember going to the cinema as a child in Germany, and you'd get the military bus, and my dad would be the orderly sergeant, and he'd have this red sash, and and all the kids that were there, their parents were in the military, but that was my dad, and he was in charge, and he was stood there with his number 2 dress on, and the cap, and this red sash, and he just looked the nuts. And I was so proud of my dad because he was in charge of the cinema.
What did you think he did? Because it sounds like
he just drove tanks.
But he served the purpose that you thought was of value. And I think it's a value, but do you know what I mean? Because every job needs doing.
But all my family were from a military background. Both my grandparents. My dad's dad was in the RAF and worked on Spitfires, fix those and stuff like that. And my other granddad.
That must have been wartime when he was doing that.
100%. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Biggin Hill, I think. I'm sure I spoke to my auntie recently, and I tried to. We didn't have those conversations back in the day, and unfortunately, they're not with us.
It's so sad.
I know,
honestly.
they're not with us any longer. But I've tried to have conversations.
That's why I like capturing stuff now. I said the other day, like, my wife's dad was, and even I can't fully articulate it because I've tried to ask him, and he's still a bit cagey. He still thinks he's under these secrets of things. He's not a kooky weird guy. He doesn't get dressed up in his uniform on the weekends. But he used to work. He used to say basically they couldn't ring him during the day because he used to work half a mile into a mountain. Basically, he used to work.
They didn't want to share the burden, I don't think.
Yeah, and then he left though, and he did 20 years after that. After he retired just naturally, even poorly or anything. And he did 20 years in the prison service. But now I know more about him than my wife does. Because I always say, why don't you ask him? Oh, well, we don't really talk. I said, just ask him. Worst thing he'll say is no. And a lot of stuff he doesn't talk about, and that's fine. You don't want to pry for, like, we're not going to put it on SAS and try and, not for personal ratification, but having that interest and, like, what is it okay to talk about? And, like you say, so you did have some of those conversations, but you wish you'd had more.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think, like you say, I can remember my granddad, my mum's dad, he was a character. His name was George, but his middle name was Fred, so he was known as Fred, and he was a bit of I kind of feel that I'm part of him in my personality and my resourcefulness and stuff like that. So he was in the artillery, and he was posted to a place called Moy in Northern Ireland during the war because they were bombing the docks in Belfast.
Yeah.
So he was in an artillery battery, but he ended up being. This is the story I remember, and I might have got some bits wrong, but this is what I, as a child, sat there and listened to this conversation and thought, wow, that's just amazing. So he was in Moy, and he was driving the CO. It might have been his turn. I don't think he was a CO's driver per se, but it was, for some reason, it was his job. And again, I can't relive that conversation because he's not with us any longer. But it was a case of, Oliver, on Saturday, you will drive the CO to such and such up in wherever. And he's kind of gone, oh, no, I can't. We're going to watch the football. Me and the lads were going to go and watch the football. And they turned around and it was the military. No. You will drive the boss on Saturday or there'll be trouble. My granddad went and watched the football. And he got in trouble. They sent him to North Africa. Yeah. So he's like, when he's telling the story, he's kind of like, and that made me the man I am today.
Wow.
And you kind of go there. So you've done the thing that the military tells you not to do. Do as you're told is the thing, isn't it? You will do as you are told in the military. I'm
not putting you in unnecessary danger. No. I'm not saying go in there with no weapon and no helmet.
No.
I'm giving you an instruction.
Around. And it doesn't matter, like you say, the analogy was you were going to be driving on Saturday and it was just a task. But if you don't do it, you will bear this. Yeah. So he got sent to North Africa. So he's at Tobruk, Alexandria.
Wow.
He's in now. He's a desert rat with the artillery, and I've got a photo. And again, I've got the old goosebumps. I've got this photo of my granddad and his pals in the war, 1942, 1943. A little black and white photo, and it's got Montgomery and Winston Churchill in the desert with his pals. But on the back, and this was my granddad, on the back, so this photo was sent by carrier pigeon or however it got to my gran that was waiting in Yorkshire, and it's got me and Winnie in the desert. It wasn't, this is when I met Winston Churchill in the desert. My granddad spun it and said, this was me and my mate Winnie, Winston Churchill, in the desert. And he got all the way through there. And then he fought at Monte Cassino. And that's a horrific battle. And I've got a map of the area at home. I've got loads of bits of memorabilia that I've managed to get from my granddad's house. And it's a restricted map of Monte Cassino that I should have framed and there's these, and he went through Greece, and they've got these English to Greek phrase books that were given to military personnel. Daft things, they're probably not worth anything, but to me, they build that story of my granddad and being, in the eyes of the military, punished and sent out. But he said it made him the man that he was when he was telling the story in the 80s and whatever, before I joined the military. And you move forward and you listen to this and you think, oh, I want to be a part of that. That's a bit of me, you know what I mean? And I want to represent my country. And I want to stand up for what I think our country believes in, that preservation of the country. And I wanted to be a part of that. My brother went and joined the Royal Engineers, and I was nearly going to go in the Engineers, but then I just thought maybe I need to make my own stride. So I joined the Signals. And I did all my training in Catterick.
For people that don't know, what do the Signals do?
So Signals are my particular role was like the British Telecom. So we normally conventionally talk about radios. I worked in the telecommunications side of the Royal Signals, so I did all the ground and cabled solutions for communications for the Royal Signals. Wow. So like British Telecom for the army, as it were, and that was my particular trade. So you became a soldier. I did 6 months training in Catterick, and then you went and did your trade training, which again I did at Catterick at the time. And I did another year of learning my trade, so the British Telecom side of the training, and then I went out to my first unit in Germany. But interestingly, and we spoke about this before today, not interestingly, quite sadly, when I was in basic training in Catterick, my father passed away when I was only 17.
How old have you been?
43.
Sure.
Yeah, so my dad had done 12 years in the military, left, never ill, was always strong, never, his doctor's file would have been ashy to paper. He was one of those guys that didn't go sick. He didn't go, and got ill at the Christmas, went into hospital in the Easter, had an operation, died in July. Bang, gone, cancer, see you later. Awful. And I'm like, I'd left, I was in the army as a boy soldier in Catterick. Paul was away with the Royal Engineers. He was now at his working unit. He was actually allowed to go to a unit very close to our home, so he could be close to home when Dad was ill. I was allowed to go home every weekend, which was quite, it was.
What was your relationship like with Dad then?
It was. We spoke about this on a mental health first aid course, and all of the people of our age had a very similar upbringing. My dad was quite authoritarian, which kind of goes back to, my dad was born in 45, so post-war, that relationship, almost Victorian values in some respect, where do as I say, not as I do, and, you will do as you're told and mind your P's and Q's, and, my dad was strict, but he was fair. I do believe that, and sometimes, probably at the time I thought, I don't agree with that, or I don't like that, but I did as I was told, and my dad would always say, don't talk to your mother like that, and he would.
Oh yeah.
But that was what
my mum's would always be, wait till your dad gets home.
100%.
Yeah, I'd be stood at the bottom of the stairs when he got back, in case you needed to speak to me.
Mine was the other way around. My dad couldn't deal with me because we were similar characters. He used to say, eventually, we're going back to the 70s and 80s where you got a whack.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you got a whack. But I was very stubborn as I am now. And I would just be like, that didn't hurt. So that would wind my dad up. Yeah. And it'd hit me again.
I think my dad stopped before that happened. Before I got big enough for it not to hurt.
Yeah.
He found different ways to influence me.
Yeah, so my dad gave up on that route because he knew it wasn't having an effect, and he would wait and he'd say, I'll just let your mum deal with you. And I think they'd obviously had conversations.
Yeah.
But, my dad supported me to join the military. The only thing he said to me, though, and I can remember him dropping me off at the career centre, was, I won't let you join the infantry. And and that wasn't because he didn't value the infantry. He saw how hard it was for him when he left. He was in an infantry battalion, and he said, you've got to think about when you leave. And I didn't do that, or I didn't have the ability. He tried to do it. He wanted to join the REME, but he hadn't got high enough score because he hadn't done well enough at school. Okay. So we kind of tried to, as youngsters, his way of teaching was, you must be the best you can possibly be, because you've got to look forward. He goes, I struggled when I left the military, you know what I mean? Who needed a tank driving instructor? Nobody. They don't drive tanks in the civilian. You know, who needs a sniper? No one needs a sniper. Only the military need a sniper. So he said, if you're going to go into the military and you have to get your paperwork signed when you're a boy soldier, he said, I'll only sign it if you go and get a trade. You're clever enough, go and get a trade. Something that is transferable. And I worked in telecoms for a number of years after I left the military, before I joined the fire service. So it set me up, and it was good advice. It was great advice, because he did those jobs of security guards and stuff. And I'm not
just feeling lost.
I'm not knocking that, but if you've got a mind, an active mind that needs satisfying, those types of jobs are probably not suited to you.
Mate, I did them, working on doors, working on gatehouses in the middle of nowhere, where you see a lorry once in every 6 hours.
If you've got an active mind.
Oh, self-torture that was. Yeah. That's why I put all of my energy into other things.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'd have...
But you realised that Pete needed to get out of that.
I needed to. I took a wrong turn at some point and went, and then you've been sat in that place for like 10 shifts, and you're like, what am I doing here? Yeah, this was a wrong turn.
Awful, isn't it? And what are you going to do about it? No one's going to change anything.
No, you're an adult now.
You can change it. Yeah. But again, you listen back to your dad. What does he know?
Yeah.
What does he know? And then you go, And then you regress into, as you get older and you have your own children, as we do, and you go, come on, Lily, you need to do such and such. Why haven't you made your bed? Yeah. And I'm like going, and I've rang my mum many a times, and I'm going, Mum, you're right, yeah, you're doing, yeah, I'm turning into my dad. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because you pick the good bits.
You do pick.
I've removed the hitting your kids. I don't believe in that, and I think there's better ways of dealing with that. You talk, and but I'm not saying my dad didn't have those skills, but that was just the way he was taught, and that was a method that he believed. And like certainly when I joined the military, that was they led with an iron fist. The regime. It was a transitional period, quite possibly. But 87 I joined the military, and you did as you told. You were shouted at, and their way of conditioning you was shout, 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 muscle memory, muscle memory, muscle memory, beat you, knock you down, and build you back up, knock you down and build you back up. But when we spoke about what people in your life do you look at and think, wow, yes, my dad with a red sash in Germany, and that's just a vivid memory. And he looked smart and he looked the nuts, and I've got photos of my dad in the Troubles in Ireland, and my mum can spot him because of how his feet and how he used to walk, a cast of 20 soldiers walking down with rubble everywhere, and thinking, wow, my dad was there to protect our country and do the right thing, and the Troubles in Ireland are a very emotive subject that people might think, well, they shouldn't have been there and all that, but that was the job.
And also, that's not a soldier's prerogative. A soldier is there to do what they're told to do.
And I did serve in Ireland as well, so I understand that. I understand that, and my family are from the Northern Ireland, so I've got not a vested interest, but I've got an understanding from a point of view. But I have an empathy for the people on the other side of the fence as well, and I think they made some mistakes. There's no denying that. Both sides made some mistakes, and it was very tit for tat. But so
when your dad passed away,
how
did you deal with that? Because I know you keep saying about the culture that it was like in the military. What was it like when he passed?
It was awful. Well, so the guy that told me was a guy called John Armstrong, was my sergeant major, and I can name him because I'll never forget that moment of when he told me. And I kind of knew because Dad had been ill. And I met him some years later, absolutely fate-related, 6 degrees of separation. I ended up knocking on his door, doing one of those shit jobs.
No way.
I was selling gas and electric. I had to go. I hated it. Yeah. So I just got anything to pay the bills. Yeah. And I picked up this sheet of paper which had a load of addresses on, out near Durham, and I knocked on the door. He opened the door, and he's just gone, oh my God, shouted at his wife, put the kettle on, one of my boys is here. And I'm like, Mr. Armstrong. And it was my Sergeant Major that 10 years, 15 years earlier had told me my dad had just died. And he said to me, come in. He was actually, at the time, he'd retired from the military and he was in the prison service in Durham. And he said, I've only ever told 2 people that their parents had passed away in my role in the military. And it was just surreal. And we sat and had a cup of tea and he asked how my mum was, because he'd obviously spoken to my mum over the phone and blah, blah, blah. How are you getting on? What did you do? When did you leave the military? Yada, yada, yada. Gone, bang, see you later. Never seen him again since. But how was that meant to be? So I believe in fate for a number of reasons. And that's just one isolated story.
When he told you, how did you deal with it then when you were still in the job? Because how old would you have been?
17.
17.
Very young. 17 in a couple of months. Part of me kind of knew that it was coming, and as I walked in, the Sergeant Major was never in the troop office. It's like going in the watch office in the fire service, like going into your teachers, to the staff room in a school. You know, why is the Sergeant Major in here? I know. And he said, come in, son. And I went, you don't need to tell me. I know. And I sat there and waited all day because my brother wanted to come and pick me up and take me back home. So I was in Catterick and our home was in Cambridgeshire at the time. And I sat there all day and I packed all my kit and they said, go away, do what you've got to do and come back when you're ready. So that was on the Monday. The funeral was on the Friday. That Friday, my mum, I don't know how she managed it. I mean, again, it's a vivid memory now. It's 30 odd years ago now. The funeral was on the Friday. I went back to work on the Monday. Because my dad said to me, through his illness, you know, I'd go home for the weekend. Now you're getting on, what have you been up to? It was interesting in what I was doing. You know, how's the military now? And, you know, how's your trade training going? I was in trade training. I was in that phase of my training. You know, and you've got to do well and all that. And in the back of my mind, I knew my dad was going to die. I'd been told my dad was going to die. I went to the funeral. And I thought, well, what do I do now? Do I sit here and wallow at home? Or do I throw myself back in? Do I stay on the same course around my team?
Yeah.
The group that I was a part of that knew me. So I went, I'm going back. I didn't want to be at home.
No.
I wanted to get back into the thing that I wanted to do the most. And I wanted to be as good as I can. So I missed a week. Looking back now, you know, maybe should I have took a couple of weeks just to digest it and absorb what was going on, be there for my mum? I think maybe I probably should have.
What did your brother do?
Well, he was at a local unit, so he could kind of...
So he kept going back, innit?
Yeah, he was kind of, from memory, he was kind of just back to work when he wanted to and not when he didn't and all that sort of stuff. He was closer. I had to go, but I was on a course that was due to finish, and that was kind of how my early part of my career was going to pan out. I could have gone on the next course. They said, do what you want. They were good that side of it. 6 months later, I got posted to Germany. And I got posted to Germany a week before my 18th birthday in January. And I turned up to Germany, and I was nobody then.
Yeah.
You know, and I was joining their gang, and I spoke about that, about the fire service. And there was no affinity, there was no interest, they didn't know my backstory. I don't think they were that bothered about learning like I like to do now, and we do now.
Yeah.
There wasn't that interest, and you were there to do a job. And I probably did about 11 months in Germany because it wasn't right for me at the time. And, you know, I can remember being in the bar and a conversation about parenting, and I can't remember the exact conversation, but it was like, oh, I bet your dad's such and such. And I just went, oh no, unfortunately my dad died last year. And the quip that came back was, oh, no one really cares. Not exactly, but yeah, you could tell that they just weren't interested. And I wasn't getting home to see mum as much as I liked. And an opportunity came up to go to Ireland, which meant 2 things really. I was closer to my mum, because I could go home. There was a bit more leave available because of the regime that you worked over there.
Yeah.
I was able to fly back to the UK. My mum was living in the East Midlands, so I could fly back into East Midlands Airport and have long weekends and support her. I felt closer to my family, that affinity, whereas as a child going to Ireland all the time. And it was like, I'd always wanted to go there anyway and do that part of my dad's career.
Yeah.
albeit not from an infanteer's point of view. My role in the signals was different, but you were still within that.
It's your adventure.
Yes, you were still within that environment of the Northern Ireland experience. You know, the Northern Ireland work, and I had a great time out there, and I think that settled me as an individual, and it allowed me to. I'm not saying that it was a smaller, probably a similar sized troop, maybe slightly older members in it, and they were maybe a little bit more affable to my situation and allowed me to. Did I be? Was I? I don't think I was upset, overtly upset. I bottled it. Probably became a bit angry about the whole situation that my dad wasn't there now to help me. But yeah, going back to your question about how was it in the military, you know, there wasn't any counselling, there wasn't any support, there wasn't any how you doing, can we check in, none of that. And my uncle, when I went to Germany, you know, obviously it was quite rural within our family, and his advice to me, which almost seems, it was great advice at the time, and I was thankful for it, but his advice to me was, mate, you know, when you go to Germany and you're that nobody in that, because he'd obviously already thought, he said, if you're feeling sad or down and thinking about family, go and have a shower. If you want to have a little cry, go and have a cry in the shower, because one, nobody will hear you, and two, they can't see you doing it because it'll be the water that's not tears. Because I was in the military, the British Army, that was hard and manly, and you know, we weren't crying. There was no emotion. Shut up, get on with it, get a grip. You know, be a man, step up. That was the environment that you were part of. No one cared. You know, step over that person and keep moving. And it was right for the time, and I'm not a person that kind of dwells on. It was what it was, and I did what I did.
Yeah. And also, they were probably doing the best they were with what they got, you know, and they were operating out of a.
They didn't have the skills.
Handed
We've
down.
evolved, haven't we?
Oh,
We've evolved massively. I mean, we've got phones now that you can take photos on. We don't sometimes use them to ring people. We didn't have mobile phones then. They didn't know what they were. You know, sat nav. What's that? Aircon. What? You know, I remember driving back to the UK from Germany, and I'd booked my ferry. And I'm like, right, I rang my mum, and you know, I made sure that I'd arranged for her to be in the house so I could ring her. And maybe most of the people that are listening are thinking, what are you on about? You just pick your mobile phone up and ring them or video call them. No, you had to kind of go, hang on a minute, what does mum do on a Thursday night? Well, I'll ring now, the time difference. Oh, I'm thinking of coming home on leave. Oh, great, okay, yeah, how are you coming? Well, I'm going to get the ferry because I bought a car and yada, yada. Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I'll be here. And, you know, my mum had moved house since my dad had passed away, and I hadn't been to the house. So I had to go to my brother's unit first so he could then take me to my mum's house. And I'd got to the Friday, and I'm like, right, I'm booked for the ferry, I'm going home. Oh, I haven't got a map. How do I get to England from Germany? At 18 years old, I was I didn't need help. I'd dealt with death, and I was okay. And I can remember one of my corporals in the troop or something. He's going, no, it's fine. You don't need a map. Oh, can you lend me a map? No, you don't need a map. And he got this piece of paper, and he wrote down these 7 towns that I had to go from Germany.
Just leapfrog your way through that.
Venlo, Eindhoven, Antwerp, Ghent, Bruges, Dunkirk. And I'm like, okay. And he said, when you get to there, he goes, that's 7 lanes of traffic, and you're on the left-hand side. You need to be on the right-hand side. You'll know when you get there. He said, so when you go to Eindhoven...
And you actually listened because you had to.
Yeah, because I was in, and I was all in. And I said, okay, how do I get back? And he just turned the piece of paper upside down. And that was how I got back. And I turned up back to camp, and everything was okay.
Yeah.
And you know, but now it'd be like, oh, well, hang on a minute, let me download the route and the old 3 rings when you got back. And my mum, you always worked on the analogy. I spoke to her recently. No news was good news. We were both in the military. I was out in Ireland. Paul was out in the Gulf when Gulf War I was kicking off. She didn't watch the news because she didn't want to think that we were going to come to any harm. So she thought, well, I won't watch the news. But no news is good news. And that's how she dealt with that.
Yeah,
and obviously she was 36 when my dad passed away.
And she'd been conditioned by the fact that she knew what your dad was like, and when he was in the military, and she'd already
when
had
we were out
that
in Germany,
idea.
he'd be going back to Ireland. Doing his thing. And there wasn't those communication links back then. He'd write letters, a piece of paper in an envelope and a thing called a stamp, and a week later they'd get it.
Get it a week later, yeah.
Yeah, we're so in touch now, aren't we? We have that ability, and my phone went there, and my wife's ringing me. Where's the caravan in the storage, and how do I find this, and where's that? And
well, she's been conditioned that she didn't need to remember those things. With the greatest of respect to her, do you know what I mean? Because you were there a few weeks ago, or whatever.
Yeah.
If you'd have known, you'd have been switching on.
Yeah.
Because you'd have been like, I might need to come here myself.
Well, he'll just go to the caravan, and I'm at work now, so she need to do that. But the experience, I think, looking back, about when my dad passed, I don't think I was able to, wasn't afforded the time. No, I was afforded the time. I selected not to afford the time to myself to understand what had happened with Dad. So I threw myself back into the pit, and I went back to Catterick, and I continued on my course and almost diverted my attention away from what had happened, and I didn't deal with it. So.
What made you want to leave the military? Because you and your brother both chose to leave.
Yeah, blimey. Well, I was a modern man, I'm in my second marriage now. Things weren't great, and I'd split up with her, and the military was going through a transition period called drawdown, where they were closing down Germany and they were bringing everyone back to the UK. And my particular role within the telecoms field wasn't transferable to the UK, and you'd be out of role. So I'd be on a military camp, not doing my job. So it's like being a firefighter stationed at an Asda warehouse delivering food, because we haven't really got a job for you at the moment. So you'd start to lose your skills. So I thought I was coming to...
Because there was already the infrastructure here, so you didn't need to
sustain
or develop the...
BT here, So you weren't employed in your particular field.
Yeah.
I'd come back from the Falklands. I did a tour down there, post-war. I had a great time down there, fabulous place. Anybody gets the chance to go there, I would recommend it. Came back from there, I was about 25 and thought, if I leave now, and I guess I'd had those conversations subliminally. I remember conversations with my dad, leave at the right time for you, where if you need to retrain to do something else, you can. Left the military at 25, got a job in telecoms again, then moved into civil construction a little bit, which was part of telecoms, but the laying of that infrastructure. Worked with a cable and wireless, doing cable TV and the like, and worked for BT. Did a few different jobs and didn't particularly settle very well, but the stubborn part of me didn't let... You could go back. Within 18 months, you could go back to your old job in the military and nothing was said.
18 months?
Yeah,
that's a long time to change your mind.
I'm sure that was right. I might be wrong. But yeah, you could go back, but the stubborn part of me said, no, I've made the decision, I ventured out, I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
And I ended up, like you say, making those changes, and I took crap jobs, which drove me to then find the job I wanted. And I worked for a couple of companies installing telephone exchanges for businesses. So within, so if you've got like a call centre that's got a phone system, I'd put that in, I'd build this phone system, I'd program it, I'd make sure all the incoming traffic was diverted to the right people and all that, using a laptop and all that kind of jazz. Skilled myself up, moved kind of slightly left field of the initial trade that I did. It was more mechanical to the sort of the computer side of it. And then I was doing that, and I was pushing some big hours, working hard and always away and stuff like that. And Paul, my brother, had joined the fire service and kind of regained some of that camaraderie from the military life. He joined in 02.
Okay.
02. So it was, the fire service in 02 was probably still more aligned to the military ethos and direction and shouty. And I think once you're conditioned to do that, you almost strive to be back there. It's almost like you're comfortable in that skin, aren't you? You know it, and it was okay. And it wasn't as pushy as the military, but it was easy for him to slot back in, and we were playing rugby together for a local side, and he's like, "Oh mate, you've got to join the fire service. This is brilliant." He said, "You do this, and you've got the team, and you've got the crack, and I was working on my own, stupid hours, monotony, and kind of thought, yeah." I went and visited him on station and thought, you know what? I do miss that bit. I miss the crack.
Yeah.
I miss being part of a bigger team. I was part of a team, but I was very autonomous.
At arm's length, yeah.
Yeah, and...
but having somebody that relies on you and you rely on them, and you do things that require you both to work in sync and operate effectively together.
Yeah, and I think the fire service gives you that in spades.
Yeah.
Tried in 03. Got all the way to interview. There's a very long process of tests and poking and prodding and all that kind of jazz. And anybody that's looking at the fire service knows probably what I'm talking about. And, it's not hard. And you can get knocked and think, I got all the way to interview, but didn't get offered a job. And I thought, well, that's okay, because I've got a job. And I've got a company car and a mobile phone and this, that and the other, and all the trappings. And I was getting paid quite well.
Yeah.
And... I thought, that's it, fine. I've had a go. It doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. But I think it was kind of there in the background. And my current fire service hadn't recruited for 3 years. And then my brother rang me and he said, they're recruiting again. They need people. They're really, really, it's coming. Why don't you have a look again? And I'm like, oh man, I think I'd gained a bit more money at work and I was doing a slightly different job. And I was like, oh mate, I'm fine. I did that, and I didn't pass, and I didn't know whether I wanted to do it again and fail again, and And he's going, no, mate. He goes, you can't keep doing what you're doing. You're going to be broken.
Yeah.
On your knees and grafting hours and hours. You're constantly tired. Okay. I'll have a go. God, was I better prepared the second time, what I mean? Yeah, it might have been luck, because it's about the competition on the day as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the competition I was against in 02 could have been, 03, sorry, could have just been that I was at the 50% mark, but my 50% mark when I went again was enough to come in the top, whatever reason. So I tried again, interview, assessment, yada, 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 got offered a job. 05 training school. Oh mate, this is great.
Yeah.
Go on training school. But I'm like, people were there going, oh, if I pass, and I'm thinking, if I've got a mortgage, I've left my job.
Yeah.
I can't if I pass.
Yeah.
I've got to pass.
Yeah.
So I kind of committed. I was the oldest on my course. I was 34. And there was 18, 19, 20s year olds on the course. I was the oldest on the course by a couple of years. So I committed not to drink. I like to drink. I played rugby. That was my thing. But I thought, if I can remove some of the things that I know that are going to slow me down, cause me problems. I wasn't as fit as some of the guys on the course. But I thought, well, if I don't go out drinking every night like them, and I don't, and I commit to the course 100%, then I'll do okay. I know, people will kind of go, talk about the silver axe. So in the fire service, the best recruit gets the silver axe. Me, I was just about passing.
Yeah.
I wanted to pass. I wanted to get over that win line to substantiate the job, get into something, go back to where I felt comfortable. I wanted to be a part of that team, and I wanted to do something that I actually felt that my job wasn't getting me. And that was a sense of worth and a sense of helping people. I think through life, you are a helper or you're not. And interestingly, we've had many a conversation on station, and you go, who are you married to? What does she do? What do they do? What do they do? What do they do? And when you actually look back, there's a very high percentage of people in the fire service that have partners that are in a very similar profession.
Yeah.
Be it the NHS, be it teaching,
Yep.
the police, ambulance service,
Yeah.
care sector.
Big number, isn't it?
Very honestly, and anybody that's listening that and you're in our service, or you know someone who's in, think about who they're married to, or who they're attracted to, or who they're joined up with. And even to the point of people that I've worked with here that have split up with their current partner, and then all of a sudden their new partner is someone still within that field. So I think our mould is very close. And I think we are...
You want to make a difference. You want to be around people, connected to people. You, your family, what you stand for makes a difference. It adds value in a very tangible way to your community, to the world, without seeming too wishy-washy. Do you know what I mean? You do make a difference in what you do.
But again, everything, we've done leadership courses, Pete, and number one is money. Always it comes up. Why are you doing this job? Money, money, money. And it's up there. We all want to be paid for our services. But I think for the vast majority of people that enter into our profession and similar professions, the want to help, evolve, change is there. Because you wouldn't do it.
No. Well, you look at that Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all that sort of stuff. A lot of those necessities get ticked quite low down on the income spectrum about have I got shelter, have I got safety, and all those aspects of it. But I think for us, whilst the hierarchy of needs implies a pyramid, I think we have a larger bucket that needs filling up with regard to I need a short sort of connection between what I do and the difference it makes. Like you say, working in telecoms or whatever, I lay cables, so eventually, when a million other things have happened, someone can have a connection with someone else, and maybe every now and again that connection might be to save a life.
I did do a good job, and I was proud of the job I did, but
you're on your own in the middle of nowhere doing something, and you're like, is this making a difference? And I'm like, well, I'm getting paid well, and it does. I get how it makes a difference.
Our job can, on occasions, be monotonous.
Yeah, 100%.
But we have that flip of the coin.
Yeah.
I'm on call, and in 3 seconds, I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I'm gone to something I have no clue. And I think that is what makes you buzz.
And that's an expected part of the job. Like I say, in any other job, I know a receptionist that once gave somebody CPR. Yeah, but that was blind luck. They were just in the right place at the right time. And it's wonderful that they did that and they took that heroic act. But it's expected for you. There's a question mark in the expectation of your role, because the question mark is you might go to one of these million different scenarios, and I'm expecting you to make a combination of your skill sets to make a difference for somebody in a very positive and direct way. That's an expectation of what you do. So you know that at some point during your life, during your career, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
What was it like in the age differences? You said there was people a lot younger than you. Was there any differences in mindsets? Because I know, like you've said a couple of times already, you connect with people now in their training and development period. When you joined, there was a different generational spectrum in your courses. And you've got kids yourself as well. So there's the people that were joining when you were young. Now there's people joining the next generation. Then you've also got your kids. How do you see differences in characters or motivations or their perception of those sort of work ethic, perhaps?
So again, we talked about how you were trained, how you would like to be trained, if you had input, how you believe through experience that training should be delivered. Because is it training, or is it me beating you with a stick for eventually you to do the right thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you gain that? And I think, personally, that if you're the instructor and the candidate doesn't understand, it's on you, not the candidate.
Yeah.
Because your training style or ability to, the information. So if you've got a lecture, an amount of input to give to somebody, you know that inside out. But can you portray it in such a way that somebody else can learn? So you have a couple of options ahead of you, don't you? I'm going to stand there with my chest puffed out and I'm going to read it verbatim from the PDF on the wall. And you're going to take notes.
The burden is on you that I expect you to understand what I'm going to say, because this is the one way I'm doing it.
We look at knowledge and understanding, embedded knowledge, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you an amount of information and it could go in one ear and out the other ear. Or I come back out the same ear.
Yeah.
Yeah? But I think that's down to the trainer.
100%.
So there's a time in some of the tasks that we undertake in the fire service where shouting and motivation is required. But there is definitely a time where you have to sit down and say, right, I'm going to tell you some information that you need to learn that may save your life or others' lives. So I need to make sure that you absorb this. Not to the point where you've told them 10 times, because at some point you kind of think, either you're not getting it, I'm not delivering it right, or you're not right for this role. And that's a tricky one. That's a really tricky one. So recently I was involved and asked to do have a go day, like initial input for hose laying and stuff. So these are fresh recruits. This was their induction day.
Yeah.
That was the term. So I was asked to come down. Simon, will you come down? And I've got a load of on-call guys. So these are people that work in the community, and they give their services to the fire service on a pager system, and they come in and they know nothing about the fire service. They've just been given their uniform. We're showing them how to wear their uniform, and we're going to give them a length of fire hose that we do everything in a particular way in the fire service. That's just how we're made up. And you roll out hose in such a way so we can connect water from a water source to a pumping appliance to then squirt it on the fire. And you need to be able to do that, and it's completely alien. You need to do that in such a way that you can do it fairly quickly, and you can do it so it doesn't damage the hose because you've only got so much. And I was asked to come down and give this input. And said, you can come down and have a bit of a shout, and I've got that command presence and I've got that ability to get that information over. Prior to doing the day, I kind of thought, okay, wind the clock back and put you as the recruit.
Yeah.
How would you like to be taught? Forget how you were taught, or maybe remember parts of it. And this is how I picked the bones out of it. So I went back in my head to my days in training school and my days in the military being trained by my instructors at the time. That's what they were called, the instructors. And I had a memory of running round the fire ground, warming up in training, 34 years old, been in the military, been married, had jobs, thought I knew a little bit about the world. And I'd seen training input, bad and good and indifferent, and this guy gave you the ultimate question of it didn't matter how you answered, do you not know what you're doing? Okay, so I'm running around, do you not know what you're doing? Clearly in my head I'm like, well no, that's why I'm here. This is all whizzing around my head, by the way, I'm not verbalising this.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, so I have two ways to answer this. No sub, I have no clue what I'm doing. His answer, clearly, because you've done it wrong. Or, yes, I know what I'm doing. And his answer is, well, it doesn't look like it. So basically, it was a no-win answer.
Yeah.
It was a question to something you were unable to answer, because whatever you said, there was a reply, wasn't there? That was always to the negative. And I don't like that. I just think that that's just, I'm standing here with my chest puffed out, and it reminded me of my military days where they were stood there and they would make you run round them. There was no weight, there was no proof, there was no, I didn't have any respect for them because I didn't know them, but they stood there and tried to command my respect. And that doesn't work in my head. And I don't like to think that I would take that into a training scenario. So I made a conscious decision to address the individuals as individuals that were joining the fire service that knew nothing. And I said that I have an amount of experience, but that doesn't make me the best. And I said, this is your time to learn. So when I was doing my introduction, I said, you don't know how to run hose out, and I do. But that doesn't make me better than you. My job today is to teach you how to do that and get you to a point that you can go to training school and you've got a bit of input and you don't, it's not all brand new. And I said, I can stand here and shout at you, and your ability to absorb is going to drop off very quickly. Or I can, and this is where I've always worked, and this is how I kind of do it. I do side-by-side mentoring. So I will watch the person, how they do it. I give them, everybody gets the same input. This is how you do it. You put the hose down, you pick it up, you run off. If you can go quick and hold your arms nice and straight like you're pulling a wheelie on a motorbike, you should be okay. If the coupling starts to drag behind you, slow down, get it going again, and then you'll go away. But this is going to take time to gain that muscle memory. I've done all of that. I've done the input. And then I go, okay, right, we'll go again. And again, you spoke about, give me 80%. Don't go 100% balls out because you're going to get it wrong because you're not good enough yet. No. So we'll start at 50%.
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we then did a bit. And I would sit down. I'd go, this guy. And I'd ask, who's done a bit? I've done a bit. Okay, I maybe need to not have my eyes on you 100%, but I'll make sure that what you're telling me is the truth. And you can tell. Hose running is a particular skill, and it's one of the many skills that we have. But if someone's got it, they've got it.
Yeah.
So you'd look, and they'd be running up and down. They're in their brand new fire kit. They're sweating, And I've got my fire kit on. I want to be the same, and I've shown them. I'm not just standing there saying I'm this person. I can do it, but I'm through demonstration.
Yeah.
So you've gained that. They've gone. He's told me you can do it. He's shown me you can do it.
This is what best practice looks like.
Yes.
Or not best
and
practice.
Now,
but...
he's giving me that side-by-side mentoring. He's not letting me blindly go on like they did in my training school.
Yeah.
Until you
just let him keep getting it wrong.
Right. Mr. Smith, whatever your name is. Right, just rest there. Right, okay. You're getting yourself in a 2 and 8 here now. When you roll that hose up, right, we'll start again. Right. Break it down in elements, into little segments. I didn't shout at anyone. And I said, this is your chance. Get it wrong now. Yeah? But get some knowledge that you can expand. And at the end of the session, I said to them, how do you reckon it went? And they all... And you could tell they wanted to do the right thing because their response was, we were shit. And I just went, you're not. Please don't think that you're not. You're actually better than you think you are, number one, because I always like to think positive of it. And through experience, they weren't that bad. They just thought they were because they wanted to be finished article. And you could sense that.
Yeah.
But I think, and I've seen them since, I've been to the training centre and I've seen them on jobs as they've now progressed through, into their career. And you're like, how are you getting on with your hose running now? Oh yeah, I've nailed it now. Yeah. I don't know what I was, one of them, how they did it, I couldn't replicate it. And I was like, right, okay. And when you look at the session starts to drop off as they get tired because they're all tense and they want to do the best they possibly can. And it's going, right, this is the time where we cut it off.
Yeah.
We stop now.
Because we're going to start making really silly mistakes
Correct.
afterwards.
And I said, what you're going to do is...
And you're going to finish on a failure.
Correct.
And think,
you're going to demotivate yourself into thinking, God, I'm not made for this.
Yeah.
And we're about building people up now, aren't we? We've learned so much more. And I even went to the point of saying, right, what station are you at? Right, I know your line manager. I'll speak to them. And you go and speak to them and say, I've had the input from Simon. Can you evolve this? And I rang them. And I'm like, mate, I've just done some training with such and such. They were good at this, they were good at that. They maybe need to work a bit on their upper body. It's a good power thing, isn't it? You'll know about this. And I said, they're there, but they just need a bit more muscle memory. That's all it is. It's just completely alien, like learning to drive. No one's born with the ability to drive. Oh, I can just do that. Yeah, you've got natural gifted people that will be a bit quicker at it. And you see that, in that particularly benign activity like hose running. But we do get it wrong and we don't get it right and, we don't want them thing. But I used that opportunity to be the instructor that I wanted to instruct me.
Yeah.
How I learnt and how I understood it. And I asked them how they wanted to be taught. And very quickly, you learn that that's how you get your team. And that goes all the way back to how are you as a leader? How do you create your team? How do you get the best out of the individual? If they think that they can't do it, they're not part of the team, they're shit, they're this. When it comes to the bells going down and you going out, they're not going to perform for fear of getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And they're going to hide. Almost. Like you say, there's no stupid questions. There isn't. And yes, we go, mate, what's 5 and 5? Well, it's 10.
Yeah.
How stupid are you? No, they've just forgot. And that question isn't a loaded question because everyone knows what 5 and 5 is.
Yeah.
But please ask the question of the LPP, the light portable pump.
Yeah.
Remind me, is this the new one?
Yeah.
Where's the fuel thing on it? I've just forgotten. Because there's so much information that you've got to absorb. And you shouldn't ever, if you are of the mindset that you're an 80%er and you're not the finished article, that you know, and Pete, you've worked in the fire service long enough now that our role has expanded to such a position.
So many aspects to it.
Yeah, I could tell you about incident recording system because that's what I do. But some of our firefighters, they don't know any of that. But they're far better on the kit than we are now as managers because we don't get the hands-on through the evolution of the role. So I don't go out onto the drill yard giving it, Johnny Big Ones, saying, I know how the LPP works, the light portable pump, the fan, the this. The firefighters are the ones that have got the better knowledge of the intricacies of it because they're doing the general test. They're doing the work. They're using it at the coalface. We're probably stood at the background doing a bit of pointing and doing the safety and the directing and the decision making.
I would say we're there to take responsibility. As in, we're there for responsibility if it goes wrong. Someone gets hurt. And to make sure nobody does get hurt.
Yeah.
But we don't have to be in charge. We don't have to be in charge of this drill. We're responsible for everyone that's here today.
No.
We don't have to be in charge. If somebody else has got that skill set, that's where as a collection of individuals, you or your strengths working together. But there's that word, isn't it? Individual. You've got to be most interested in the individual. So you meet them where you are. And given that analogy of recruit, like you say, you've got to meet them where they are. Because your job as a trainer is not to display this knowledge here and expect them to come to you. You've got to meet them where they are and help them get from where they are to where you need them to be. Because if you keep starting at 3, if the goal is 10 and you keep starting at 3, but they're at 1. So every time they start at 3, you're expecting them to jump from 1. Every time they fall and say, just started, you can't even do it. Well, go back and meet them at 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes
take them
you have
from
to
where
break
they
it
are.
Down, don't you?
Yeah. And then once you've taken from where they are, you can start at 3. You can start at 6 because they're so used to it. But if you never go back and we all just make a few assumptions, go, we're all at 4, right? Everyone knows how to switch the LPP or whatever. And someone doesn't.
No.
You know what I mean? So let's start where you are.
And again, within that team, sometimes there's that fear of putting yourself out there and going, do you know what, actually, I've not touched this bit of kit for a while.
Yeah.
Can we get the data sheet out?
Yeah.
Can we go back to brass tacks? A manager I used to work with, his training sessions, and maybe we should, we should do this more. He would always have theoretical input and then practical input. So he'd get the data sheet out, he'd get the the lecture pack up for that particular item before you went out on the drill yard. So everybody was skilled up.
Set you up to fail.
They put you on for, going back to your thoughts, what I'll do is I'll give you the information so we're all on for. We know where the fuel tap is, we know how much it weighs, we know how many people need to lift it off the truck, we know how far back from the door to put the fan so it creates the right cone.
Yeah.
Let's not have that conversation out there and make the training session outside longer. That will be super sleek and swift.
Or spend 2/3 of our time afterwards saying everything we didn't do right, which we would have known because if we'd have said it at the beginning, James or Sarah would have gone, oh no, so it's on the other side, boss. And you go, all right. And we go, so we'll put 3 lengths on the end of it. No, it's 4. I had a look at the thing earlier. All right, right, it's 4, yeah. So we're doing it out there in a minute. We'll make sure we put 4 on. We go on the right hand side, and we're gonna cover all those bases.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like shuffling your cards. We're going to get us all roughly where we are, and then we're going to play. Rather than going out and going, ready to start? And we go, wow, the cards are all over the place, and all of our knowledge is not really aligned. let's get us all shuffled in together and then go, right, let's press play now, because we're all on 4 now, aren't we? We're all there.
And with training in the fire service, we have the benefit of no adrenaline. We know what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So why don't we? And we do. And when I'm saying why don't we should always use that opportunity to do it at a slightly slow pace. Sometimes it's good to add a bit of energy into the drill. You know, we do simulated house fires where we say, you know, I'll try to say to the team, okay, we've got a smokehouse at our fire station, so we can put synthetic smoke through it. We can put casualties in the property, so we're honing our search techniques, because when we enter a property, it's like going into a building that you've never been into with your eyes closed and having to find people within there amongst all the crap that that person's accumulated. So, you know, if they're not very slick, you're not going to achieve the task. But what we'll do sometimes when we do training, it's very slow and laboured, where we'll go, okay, get on the truck, go round the corner, come in, and as soon as the handbrake's on, it's like we're at a job, which is very hard to replicate. But we try and instill that virtue on the individual to say, this is what we're up against, to try and gain that kind of incident speed that is needed. And interestingly, so when we were talking to those recruits, and I've been down when people are on like breathing apparatus courses and stuff, and you know, you can see that they're nervous, and you know, because they're desperate to do the right thing. They're desperate to find that casualty within, because that's what they've gone there for. And like you said about the winger in the rugby team, everybody's attention is focused on you as the firefighter.
It's just you two in there, and everyone else is outside going, at some point they're going to emerge with the casualty in a minute. Because that's
Hurry
their job.
up.
That's what we sent them in for.
Yeah, if you don't come out with a casualty in a few seconds or a few minutes, one, they're not going to be able to hold their breath for that length of time, or they, you know, unfortunately, they're not going to be with us for much longer.
And you're going to run out of air. So your opportunity for success is shrinking every
But you've
minute.
also got the overbearing pressure of what's that fire doing.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like
The odds are stacking against you more and more. Every
you've
round
got to
that
manage
passes.
that fire, manage what you perceive to be in that building. So through training and injects and how you attack that as a team and how you bond those relationships, and then you can then use that then when you go out into the real world, when you get an incident, and then all of a sudden, like you say, we said there about the team approach to it. I worked with my first ever watch manager there. He didn't have to do a great deal when we turned up to a house fire. We went to a lot of house fires, and we were that good that the driver got that off, the such and such got that off. We'd go to the door, everybody knew their job, and we'd work together on a number of house fires. We know the property layout, our search was the same, and you know, we were a drilled team. And we kind of prided ourselves on that. And I'm not saying I'm not that now. We're very good here.
Yeah.
But again, these new people that are coming in, they're joining our team, and you want them to come up to your level. So it's down to you as that team receiving that person to say, right, this is what we do. We'll show you what we do. And this is your position in that team. And you've got to get up to speed very, very quickly. But always be mindful of the fact that when they go into their first house fire, their crimper is going 10 pence, 50 pence, 10 pence, 50 pence. But if you display the attributes and skills that you've professed to having, they will have the ultimate confidence in you as the incident commander maybe stood outside, the team leader while you're wearing breathing apparatus, to guide them through that property and execute the task that's given to you in a very quick and succinct way. With not putting them at, we talk about not at risk. Clearly you're at risk because you're in a burning building, but no.
But if you raise their level of proficiency and competency, the risk reduces.
100%.
Because their competency increases.
But again, the analogy in the fire service there, where we always work as a team, But interestingly, in a house fire, while we're in a very small team, it's a sub-team, it's probably one of the few tasks that you do on your own. Once that incident commander has given you that brief and said, right, guys, I want you to go through the front door, go up the stairs, search this, search that, you guys are on your own. Yeah. And this brings me back to us in that, I guess, mentoring role to those new recruits, and stood outside the training rig, going to wear BA and being nervous of not performing. And I say there, right, okay, guys, be cool. I said, here's your approach to the situation. Go into that building, and every building that's on fire, as though your family are inside that building, and you'll not go far wrong.
Yeah.
Because you'll arrive at the right time, prepared with the right kit, and you'll search every centimetre of that property swiftly, because you know that your family can't hold their breath for 25 minutes in a smoke-filled, fire-encompassed building, and you'll get them out and you'll protect them as quickly as you can. And I'm not saying that you give any different a support, but everybody knows with a family it's different. It's so different. So I always have done, I've gone into a situation, an incident, as though the person I'm treating is one of my family members in everything. Yeah. Be it a cut hand, a house fire, a road traffic collision where I'm cutting somebody out, a deceased person that I don't want to further injure, so I can get them to their family so they can say their goodbyes and they're not further injured because I've dropped them on the road. Yeah. Because that would be wrong. Yeah. I treat that person as though they were one of my family. And I think that's stood me in good stead in my execution of incidents that I've been to.
Speaking about members of your family.
Yep.
You recently went on, you do an annual bike ride.
Yeah.
The purpose of which is in memory of Paul. What happened to Paul?
Oh, blimey. So, Paul is my brother, my older brother, and Paul's in the same fire service as me, and he passed away whilst at work. Sudden death, and he had what is known as an arrhythmia. So basically his heart got slower and slower and slower and slower until eventually he passed away. Not diagnosed, very sporty, unlike me, he did everything at 120 miles an hour. He did everything that was mad. He was big into canoeing as a soldier. He was in the Royal Engineers Canoeing Club, and they would do a race. You could Google it by all means. It's called Devizes to Westminster Canoe Race. I've done it once. He convinced me to do it. He conned me into doing it, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And anybody that's thinking of stretching themselves, go and do the Devizes to Westminster Canoe Race in a oneer, 126 miles from Devizes in Wiltshire to Westminster Bridge in a canoe. 79 portages. I might have got the figures right. The aficionados out there will be rolling their eyes at me. Basically, it's a bloody long way in a canoe, straight out of the pen, no stopping, continuous.
How long did it take?
So, the purists like to do it in under 24 hours. And that was our target. So myself, my brother conned me into doing it. My brother was very good at conning me into doing things.
Is this part of his prove it mindset?
I think so, yeah. And
yeah, I reckon I could do that.
Yeah,
oh, really?
Yeah. So I didn't actually paddle with Paul. I did do some races with him. Paul was a league above me. He paddled with this other guy, but he paired me up with another guy. He convinced another guy to do this canoeing. So we went down to the local canoe centre, borrowed a boat, learnt how to. I've paddled canoes and I've done all of that, and I can, I'm quite proficient in canoeing and stuff. But marathon canoe racing is a whole different spectrum. If you've ever seen it, and the analogy I used there when I did my first couple of sessions, it's like trying to canoe on a matchstick.
Oh, the really long, thin ones?
Correct.
Oh,
That
Christ. God, they tip over on their own.
Yes, they tip over on their own. So we'd gone down there, and they've actually got a rudder system, because they're 28 foot long, 26 foot, whatever. They're bloody long. So they've got a rudder system. So not only are you canoeing with your knees up, which makes you more imbalanced.
Yeah.
You're not pushing your knees out to the side. Anybody that's done canoeing, that's how you gain your balance. You've got your knees together, and you're leaning over. K2, K1 races. Google the videos, you'll see it. It's ridiculous. So we've gone out, and I've learnt to canoe one of those types of canoes. I've learnt to steer. So again, multitasking.
Yeah.
We're not very good at that multitasking thing. Hands doing one thing, feet doing another. Try not to fall into the water and go at speed across water.
Fuck.
So we'd gone down and we'd done try, and we were shit. Me and my mate, we were terrible. For the first 2 months, we would go out in the water and try and balance. We weren't moving. We were trying to stay upright. And I swear to God, there's no lie, we'd just sit in the river and it would be like, stop moving! And the boat would, because we were in a 2-man canoe, and it's going, my mate Barry was going, mate, stop moving. I'm not moving. No, you're moving. No, I'm moving. And we'd like scold for support.
Yeah.
And we evolved, and eventually we probably spent about 6 months training for this, and we went off and we did devices.
Perseverance.
It was savage. And then we gone. I think it took us 26 hours. Straight through, no kip. I can remember coming past Windsor, past the Queen's Gaff, the boss. And we're paddling past there. I'm hallucinating. There's like shit coming out the bushes. I'm like, I just need to sleep.
Yeah.
And my brother's they're ahead of us. They're powering on, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I can remember being at the start at Devices, and I had a moment. I had a proper moment. And when him started, and I had a tear. I can't lie to you, mate. I had a tear in my eyes. This is 2004. I'm not in the fire service. This is before I joined the fire service. And I'm like, mate, I can't do this. I haven't got my dad to talk to. We've talked about my dad. I haven't got my dad to talk to and say, you know, Dad, give me that encouragement like a dad and tell me I can do this. My brother's like, you know, I know he can do it. He's done it loads of times. I'm like, mate, I can't do this. And he's like grabbed hold of me and given me a massive hug. And he's like, you can do this. And you know when you feel that warmth in a hug that transfers, and I kind of gained some energy from him.
100%, yeah.
And I don't know, did that get me on? I don't know. We had some dark moments, mate. Me and my mate Barry, that I played rugby with, and he got conned into doing this frigging canoe race. Anyway, we did the canoe race, and that was probably the most painful thing I've ever done in my life. It was so much.
Paul got to do some other stuff though, didn't he? Paul dragged you up the peaks.
Mate, we've done the 3 peaks. I'd done the 3 peaks with a crowd of other people, and Paul should have been on it, but had volunteered to go back in the military and go out to Bosnia with the UN, so he didn't do it. So he came back and he's like, oh mate, I didn't do that. It's so unfair. Come on. Me and you'll do the 3 peaks. Oh yeah, why not? We'll do it unaided. We won't have any support. I've been working all week. I was working in Scotland. I drove back to my house in Durham, drove up to Gretna, where he'd managed to get a lift to off a pal. We met up, we drove up to Fort William, we had fish and chips, slept in the back of my old company car, got up at 4 a.m. after no sleep, a busy week at work, ran up Ben Nevis, ran back down, because we couldn't walk, that wasn't allowed, Paul wouldn't allow that. And there was a military team doing it, and they had a minibus with a cooker. So then we'd drive through Glasgow the next day down. We did Scarfell Pike, and it's getting dark, and we're up there, and we've done that, right, we're hungry, and we went to a little chef and had some proper food to give us energy. And we're swapping driving. We've got down to Snowdon, we're on the last peak, and it's bloody misty and horrible.
I don't think it's ever nice at Snowdon, to be honest.
I've been many a time, but I think a handful of times I can remember.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that point about Snowdon in a little while. And we've gone up Snowdon and it's bloody misty, and we've got to the top and we've tapped out. You get to the trig point, bang, 23 and a half hours, no support. And he's going, "Shall I have a brew?" And I went, "No." I said, "Even the sheep look pissed off. Let's go. I just want to go home because I know I've got to go back and drop him off in the Midlands and get my ass back to Durham because I'm at work on Monday morning, and this is like Sunday morning, midnight-ish, just after midnight because we started at 4, so it's probably 2 o'clock in the morning." So we've hooted down. We've come back down the miners' track because we think it's further, but we can open our legs. Yeah. As we get into the car park at the bottom of Snowdon, it starts to rain. Happy days. The army team are just pulling in with their support, and we're finished. Yeah. And they're like, "There's them lads we seen at the start in Scotland. How have you got on?" The brother's like, "Oh, check us out." You know what I mean? We've got this. Support. Who needs a support team? And he's like, "Right, what we'll do now then, get in the car, we'll drive back to my house in the Midlands from Wales." And I'm like, "Mate, I cannot keep my eyes open. If you want to drive. I said, "But I cannot keep my eyes open. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you any different." Anyway, I've got in the car. So from the bottom of Snowdon, I don't even think I got through Capel Curig, and I'm a kip. And the next thing, I wake up, the car's stopped, look at my watch, it's 8:30 in the morning. We're in a petrol station. Where the frig are we? And we're in Battersea Coed, another 3 miles down the road. And I'm look over and my brother's there, fast a kip in the driver's seat. And I'm like, "All right, mate, what happened?" "Yeah, I was knackered. He's only done another 3 miles, pulled up and had to go to sleep." I'm like, "Oh, freaking hell." Right, so then we shared the drive and we got back to the Midlands. I've dropped him off. I had a bath at his house. My legs are stiff, absolutely creamed in. Yeah. And then I've got to drive from the Midlands back up to my house because I was living in Durham at the time. And I get back Sunday night, have another bath, straight in bed. And I go into the office where I used to work in Darlington at the time. And I walk in the office, I'm wind beaten, absolutely dishevelled. Stiff as you can hardly walk. And they're like, "All right, good weekend." And I'm like, "Mate, you haven't got a clue." And I start regaling the conversation and they're like, "Are you mad?" And I'm like, "Mate, you've not met my brother." I said, "He just conned me into doing another stew." You know, everybody else would have got the support team. With the guy making you food and a nice brew when you got off the mountain. No, we didn't have any of that. So we've done that, and it's like, "Oh, I'm going to do this. I've taken up cycling." I'm like, "Oh, okay, mate, yeah." And I'm just like, let it wash over me a lot of times. You know, like when I came down, I was living up in Durham, and he's going, "Come down for the weekend. It's nice to see you." And I come down and he's like, "Do you want to play rugby?" "No, mate, my rugby days are long since gone. I'm a fat knacker sitting behind a laptop programming phone systems." "No, mate, honestly, you'll love it. No, I ain't got any kit. Don't worry about that. I've got some spare boots. He's got some shorts. And now I'm playing rugby. And I love it. Yeah. This is great." And I think I needed that drive from him. And anyway, I was travelling from Durham down to the Midlands to play rugby every weekend. And everyone's like, "You do what? Isn't there rugby teams up there?" "I know, but I'm playing with my brother and I'm seeing him, and he was in the military and I was in the military, and there was a gap in our lives where we weren't together." I'm itching that scratch now. And then we've transpired that a couple of years later, I've got a job in the fire service and now we work together. This is brilliant. This is almost like a dream come true. We've gone full circle and we're back together.
So will you work together on stations, watches?
No. Paul's on Green Watch, went into Prince's Trust, and then he worked in the training department. I've been on jobs with him, not many in all fairness. Yeah, we were around and we had shared experiences, you know, as we alluded to earlier. We talk in the fire service, don't we? And you went to such and such a job. Oh, yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. Oh, I went the day after. Or, yeah, no, I came on reliefs, or I did this, or I was on overtime. So we did work together sometimes, but not maybe as much. And again, with the power of hindsight, should have done a bit more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I can't change that now. You know. But yeah, Paul got into cycling, was sacking the rugby off. I think he broke his leg 4 breaks in a couple of years.
Okay, now.
Mate, he broke his leg one day. Selfish rugby player. Absolute. Arm open. Paul, pass the ball. He's got white line frenzy. Ran for it. The skinniest lad in the opposition has tackled him. Broke his leg. Pulled him backwards. Little rucksack tackle. Pulled him backwards. All he had to do was slip a pass to me. I'm under the post. Yeah. No, he's not gifting me a try. Selfish to the core. He's broke his leg. He's gone out clubbing. Out dancing. Next day, he can't get out of bed. He's gone to his partner. My leg's hurting here. Something not right. Gone down. Yeah, you broke your leg. Crutches. Bang. Fixed that one. Broke his other leg. Melanie's like, I've got all these photos for about 2 years. He's got a cast on. He just had one set. He just kept the crutches because he was just like, I'll need them again soon. Yeah, so he's like, I'm like saying, mate, the job was changing, the fire service was changing, being sick, and we were going through rounds of maybe redundancy and stuff like that, and being on the sick, you didn't want to be highlighted as the individual that they maybe wanted to get rid of.
Yeah. So
he's like, right, I need to do something different. Take cycling up. But I'm not going to do normal cycling. I'm just going to do stupid, let's ride across the world cycling. And he rang me one day, mate, I've done Ride London. I've joined the Royal Engineers Old Boys Cycling Club. I've got back my camaraderie with my old pals, and it's great. You want to come? No, mate. I'd bought a bike and I did a bit of leisure cycling. That was me, and I was happy with my lot.
Yeah.
And he rang me one day. He goes, oh mate, I've seen this ride, Chase the Sun. Epic. 210 miles in a day. I'm like, yeah, oh, okay. And I'm, when you're like, I'm doing something else, and I'm like, 210 miles in a day. No, mate, it must be over a weekend. You've got that wrong. No. You set off at sunrise in the Isle of Sheppey, so North Kent. You ride through London on your push bike, and you can go there. Will you support drive me? No, mate. Doing that. Will you do support? She's driving a car. Couldn't be asked to do that. Thinking that in itself sounds like a battle. You're mad. I'm not supporting you because I don't think it's possible. You're absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's like, well, why don't you do Ride London with me? Ride London, it's 100 mile thing. No. Will I be doing it with you? I'll do it if I'm doing it with you. Well, no, because I want to do it in this time, and you won't be as quick as me. So I'm going to pair you up with a load of my old army mates. And I'm like, am I doing this with you, or am I doing it with your old army mates? I'm like, I get it if I'm doing it with you, but... And this was Paul. He would just go off and he'd leave you.
Yeah.
He'd just have his own mission where he was just so focused on getting to the end. You became insignificant. And I knew all of this. So I'm like, no, I'm not doing Ride London or whatever you bloody call it, riding with your mates. If you want to do that, you sort of thing, I'm not interested. You can't make me, I don't care. And I had a young daughter at the time, and
so you had kids by this point,
all the extra work that needed, I just couldn't do it. So we fast forward, we're in 2016. Paul had done a couple of rides, and he'd done one with the fire service where it was the Chiefs Challenge, one of our previous chiefs, and they'd ridden from the west coast of England, the Workington area. It's called the Ride of the Roses, which ends you up in Bridlington. And Paul had gone on that and been an active part of that, 130 miles or so. Wow. And they'd done that in a day. And then a friend of ours had been diagnosed with cancer and subsequently died, and they did a charity bike ride where they did coast to coast, which is 130, 140 miles again, Workington to Sunderland. And I'm like, mate, no, I ain't doing it. I'll give you some money and I'll do the charity car wash and all that jazz. But you're not getting me on a bike. I've got this crappy hybrid sort of thing. You need to get a road bike. And I've bought a road bike because he's convinced me that I need to buy a road bike. And we've gone out and done some rides. When I say we've gone out and done some rides, we've started together. He's fucked off and I've met him at the end. And I've enjoyed my day at my pace. And anyway, he does that. 2016, August the 23rd, I get that phone call. Your brother's passed away. I put the phone down. I hang up.
Passed away at work as well, didn't he?
Yeah. Not at a job, not an operational job, but whilst on duty. The shift system at work, you have your own room. He'd gone to bed that night, said goodnight to the guys, and passed away in his sleep. So sudden death. And when you peel back the onion, if he'd have done it, sat around the tea table, the guys that were there would have been able to help him. So they'd kind of gone through all that anxiety of not being able to do their job almost.
Yeah. How long was he there for? When did it happen?
Yeah. Why?
How long was he lying there for?
And my kind of slant on it is you just really bad timing. Undiagnosed, happened at the wrong time, at the wrong place, with nobody around him. If it had happened 8 hours earlier or 8 hours later, you'd have collapsed at work. You know, again, we've got some skills, we've got some kit that could have done, and maybe survived it. So really, dealing with that in that one part of the whole scenario, that's tough. But you can't change it.
How did you deal with it?
I didn't. Like I say, I got the phone call from the Deputy Chief Fire Officer at the time, and I'm a bit of a numbers geek. I've worked in telecoms. And my phone goes off. I'm in the cinema with my daughter. 07800. That's the brigade mobile number. I know. God damn it. And I was about to do a presentation for a load of dignitaries, and I thought, oh, somebody ringing me because it's happening this Friday. I'll just get it before I put my phone. I'm just checking my phone's on silent in the old cinema. Hello, yeah, this is Andrew, blah, 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 blah. Oh, boss, yeah. I've got to tell you, blah, 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 your brother's died. Bang, hung up. And we just moved seats in the bloody cinema. Like, oh, we're in the wrong seat. And we've moved to these, like, Gucci luxury ones in there. My daughter's like that, she's only young. And I went, come on, we've got to go. And we've got up and left. And she's like, what's up? And I'm like, your Uncle Paul's poorly, we've got to go. And I walked back outside, I've re-rang the number. Hello? Tell me that again. And I could feel myself boiling. I'm boiling inside. Is this a wind-up? Tell me again. And he told me again, and I hung up on him. She said, I've got to go. Put the phone down. And I rang him back again. Tell me again. And you have to get your ticket stamped to get free parking. And you're supposed to go and give it to the guy, and he puts it in the machine. And I've just gone elbows out, walked straight past the guy, I didn't even engage with him. And I've gone to the machine because I've seen him do it, stamped my own ticket, and walked off. And he's like, excuse me. And I'm on a mission. And I ring my wife, and I just said to her, she's like, all right. So you got to come home. She's like, what? I said, you got to come home now. She's like, what's up? I said, get in the car, come home now. Paul's dead. She just burst out crying. And she said, but what? I said, I don't know. Get in the car and come home now. We've got to go down. So I live in Durham. I said, we've got to go down and see Melanie. I said, I have no idea what's gone on. And obviously, my wife's aware that my brother's in the fire service and what could have been the reason. And I had to ring Melanie. And she's screaming on the phone. This is not right. This is not happening. This is not real. I said, we're coming down. And we're going around the house, and I'm like, right, pack some stuff. And my wife's like, yeah, but right, I'm driving. I says, I'm driving. I need something to think about. Now, my mum's in France, at her place in France. She's got a house in France. She's in France, and she's coming back that day.
She was already due to come back?
Yeah. She's coming back that day. And she always rings me. Always rings me when she's coming through the port.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're all right, yeah, we landed, usual 3 rings, going back to my childhood.
Yeah.
How's everything at home? And she'd always say to me, how's your big brother? That's how she addressed. So I'm like, oh, friggin' hell. I've got to get down to Melanie. I've got to find out what's going on, gain that ground truth. My wife's like, you can't drive. I can drive. I'm doing this. I said, I've got cruise control. I'm not going to go ripping down the road because, as we know in the fire service, nothing's going to change if you go down at 120 mile an hour. I've just been told he's not here. He's not with us any longer. So why do I need to do 130 mile an hour? I don't, do I? Cruise control, 70, we're going down. We're halfway down. Woolly Edge services on the M1, for anyone that knows it. She's like, oh, I'm going to get a coffee. Do you want anything? I don't want anything. I just need to get there. And I can't stop at Woolly Edge services now. I've never been back to that cinema. I can't go there. I can't go into the building because of the memory. And the car park, I had a V70 estate, Volvo V70. It's like the biggest car in the world. It's the tightest car park, and I've palmed it around the car park. The walls are rashed with cars that have hit it, and I'm because she's like, where are you? I'm in the car. I come down. I go down to the house, to Melanie's house. Paul's been taken to the local hospital, to the mortuary. Melanie's arranged we're going to go down together, and we're going to disprove this whole facade of Paul not being here any longer. So we get in the car. I'll drive. I get in Melanie's car. I'll drive. I'm the man. I'm the pillar of the family now. I've got this. Come on, get in the car. We'll go down there. And we went into the mortuary. And they're like, okay, right, you ready for this? Well, we went in, and the guy stood there in the corner like a friggin' gnome. The mortuary technician, like, honest to God, what an awful position to be in when you've got a family coming in to confront that. And he's lying there. And I said to him, mate, what are you doing here? He's just lying there, like asleep, with his hands across his chest. And I held his hand, and I just said, what are you doing here? And he was just asleep. He looked like he was asleep. And me and Melanie, we just kind of stood with him for a couple of minutes. And it was just almost, you could see something that was clear and obvious, but it was being, the path to your mind was blocked. No, this is it's him winding you up. This is just something else that he's going to get you on. And I held his hand, I felt him, I touched him, and I knew it was him, but my mind wouldn't let me. And we walked out of the hospital back to the car park and went, because we were like, well, we'll go there, it'll be somebody else, and we'll be like, get in. So where is he then? You know what I mean? That weren't him. Where is he? And we both walked out and we went, well, that didn't work, because it was him. And then my next hurdle came, because Mum was travelling back from France. She was going to get off the ferry, and she was going to ring me, and she was probably going to give it the old social media flick. How can her first acknowledgement of her son passing be on, mate, gutted to hear your bro, blah, 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 reading Facebook or whatever. So it's like, ring the service, ring the fire service. Boss, you've got to put a media block on it. My mum is travelling back from France. I need to speak to her. I need to be the one to tell her. It can't be through Facebook. It cannot be that it will kill her. Bearing in mind she's dealt with my dad passing, her brother's passed, her dad's passed. She's dealt with a lot of death, and I've said to her, I don't know how.
One of your kids as well.
Yeah. So then I'm like, okay, they've agreed to that. They've sent a message, global message out to the fire service. Do not put anything on. Not all the family know. Blah 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 blah. We know, because the fire service were told, because obviously something was kicking off in the service. Officers were deploying to the station, and paramedics, and messages were going out of control, and whispers were all out there, weren't they? You know what I mean? And everyone was like, well, what's going on? We all want to know.
Yeah.
What's happened to one of our team? So then it was like, you cannot put anything on social media. Wait until you're given the go-ahead. Because we're not in control of social media, we know that. to a point, but fortunately, as a slightly disciplined service, and everyone was brilliant. They were really good, and I then had to make a decision of how the hell do I tell my mum, when do I tell her, and at what point. So I live in Durham. She lives in Derby, and France, and Derby and France. You know, do I turn up to her house in Derby unannounced? And she's like, "What are you doing here?" Do I go down to the ferry port? And she'll be like, "Well, what are you doing here?" Do I let her drive back? And every ideal that I had of how I could tell her had a flaw. And I thought, I can't let her drive up and not know, because she might want to come here, because then she's going to get back late at night. So I rang her. I was like, and I'd run this through my wife and through Melanie. Like, how am I going to tell her? How am I going to tell her? And there was no way, no good way. There was never a good answer to the problem. So I thought, right, I'm just going to have to ring her. And I didn't realise at the time, but they were sat in the passport control queue. And you know when you ring somebody and they know something's not quite right. And I'm like, all right. She's like, no, I'll ring you. That's the regime. I'll ring you. We're back. We landed. She tells me how the journey was, blah, 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 blah. How's your big brother? And I said, Mum, I've got to talk to you. I said, I've got to tell you something that I don't want to tell you. And I told her, and she freaked out. And my mum's partner was driving the car. Now he's obviously not listening to the conversation fully, and he's obviously thinking, what the hell is going on? And they're in the queue for passport, and she went, I'll have to ring you back. She's kind of done what I did. And they've obviously pulled up on the side of the road and rang me back. Right, now tell me what's going on. And then they've had to drive all the way back up, probably similar to what I kind of did. What we're going to do, what's happened, how's this? And I'm like, I don't know this and I don't know that. All I know is I've seen him and he's not with us. And that, I said the canoeing was the hardest thing I've ever done. I lied. That was.
You know, though, when I asked you, how did you deal with it, it's so interesting. You went straight to your daughter, I need to look after my daughter. Then you went to your missus, babe, I need to go home now, I need to tell you something. Then you went to Melanie, I need to look after Melanie. Now I need to look after my mum. All great, of course, but also all, none of which maybe conveniently allow you not to deal with what am I think about this. Not what would Dad do, because Dad's not here. Not what would Paul do, because Paul's not here. So your focus is on everyone else.
I've almost gained elevated status now.
Well, my job is not to think about how Simon's dealing with this. My job is to help everyone else deal with it. I am here to facilitate everyone else. I'm here to sort it all out. I'm here to get the understanding of, like you just, I need to get the information. I need to handle this. But not think about what Simon's doing with it. So after you'd got that understanding, what did the next few months look like?
Well, it was awful, mate. It was awful. I kind of busied myself, I guess, arranging stuff. Now the service were absolutely fabulous. And I guess when you wind back the clock to how the military dealt with my dad passing and how they dealt with it, boy, have we learned. How we've moved on is fabulous, and I can't fault them at all. They said you can have all or nothing, because we spoke about fire service funeral, family affair, and they basically said whatever you want, you can have. And I said straight away, Paul would want. They said, we'll sort it. We'll sort it. And they were absolutely amazing. And they supported us in everything. There was a couple of other bits that were going on, split families and stuff like that. Not really prepared to talk about that. It doesn't really matter as far as the outcome. But there was a few things, again, that probably distracted me away from me as an individual.
I need to deal with that.
Yeah. But I wanted to protect Melanie, her son, their son, my family, my mum. And I wanted to arrange the best that I could for my brother. And I'm going to use the term brotherhood. I knew, speaking to my colleagues on station and his closest friends and what they wanted, and you know the funeral that turned out, unbelievable. And you kind of, you know, when people go, oh, what was it? Oh, it was a great funeral. You're thinking, how can a funeral be great? We were choosing, what church should we go to? And we didn't want to go to his local church for a number of reasons. A very close friend of ours had died, a rugby friend had died of cancer. Prior to him dying, he was diagnosed, his wife was killed in a road traffic collision. So we'd kind of dealt with that, and we'd been in that church so many times. And his kids were left, they knew that their dad was going to die. But in the meantime, while he was going through his treatment, the mother was killed. So we went to their wedding vow renewal. I carried Gina into the church. I carried Sean into the church with my brother. I'm like, I'm not carrying my brother into that church. And then it was like, well, how many people are going to come? Then we started looking at bigger venues, and we picked this church, and it could have 600-800 people. And there was the same amount of people outside. It was phenomenal. The street was lined shoulder to shoulder all the way down as we came in. And I can remember coming down the street and being in the car. Oh, mate, let me go back a little bit. So we're at the house, and his crew, they were lent a turntable ladder to carry his coffin, and they drove it from the station and picked him up. No, he was at the station, and he was carried from the station to the house to meet us and the family, and then we would go to the church. They drove him on the back of that. He was on the back of the turntable ladder. Family were there, and I was kind of, well, we need to do this and we need to do that. And it was like small talk that it was just like, I can't deal with this. I'm going to go and stand at the end of the street and wait for my fire service colleagues that were bringing my brother home to then go to the church. And I went and stood at the end of their street. And I thought my legs were going to go from under me. I've never felt anything like it before in my life. And I had to grab this sign, and I'm in my undress uniform, my best bib and tucker, shiny shoes, cap, the lot, medals, and I'm gripping this street sign because I'm going down. In my head, I'm on the floor. And how I stayed up, I don't know. And then
Why?
The wave of emotion was, and I'm like, he's coming. I can see the, and it was reality. Reality punched me in the face. And I'm gripping this street sign, and there's all people out, and the people in my brother's street had all put flowers out. It was beautiful, really nice. And I'm gripping this street sign, thinking, in my head, I'm on the floor, like I've just collapsed. And I'm like, you cannot collapse. You've got to stay strong. I'm gripping this inside. And then that kind of gallows humour kicked in. And the lad that had said on his watch that he'd drive the turntable ladder, it's got no power steering. And it's the tiniest turn to reverse down the street.
I bet he was shitting himself.
He's got my brother on the back, pushing and pulling. And the watch manager's there. To me, and he's sweating. And I'm looking at him, and he's like, you can see he's like, why have I volunteered for this? I know why I volunteered, but why have I volunteered for this? So we reversed in, and I'm fussing. Get in the car, get the family in the car. You go in that car. Oh, which car shall I, And then the guy from the funeral place, he's like, right, come on then, me and you, out the front. You know how I don't know what he's called, is he? The lead.
Processional lead or
something. The guy with the cane and the top hat. Yeah. He goes, me and you. He goes, here's his helmet, here's his fire helmet. You're going to put that under your arm, and we're going to walk him out of his street. And I've gone, I can't do that, mate. I'm fucking just about on the floor. And he goes, he looked at me, and he goes, you've got this. Thank you, brother. Boom, chest down. Yeah. Okay. And my mum's like, are you getting in the car? No, I'm just going to walk out there. And we've gone, the cursory 100 yards, really slow walking pace. The cars are pulled alongside. And Albert, his son's there, and he's got out 3.5. 2 police motorbikes, blue lights, escort. He's thinking, this is cool.
Yeah.
We've got motorbikes. Yeah. And there was an officer's car. And the neighbouring brigade, so that everybody could go to the funeral in Goosin, they got the neighbouring brigade on side to provide fire cover for our service.
Yeah.
And they said, they want to stand out. What do you want them in? What do you want them wearing? A fire kit. That's what we look like.
It's universal, fire kit.
Yeah. Standing in a blue shirt and blue trousers, it's not. Undress is one thing, so the smart uniform. I said fire kit. And I can remember we came down and the police outriders stopping all the traffic. They've got the turntable ladder, an officer's car with the blue lights flashing, and funeral cars and the family. There's a set of traffic lights outside the fire station. They go red. And we're stopped in the car. And there's just a line of people in uniform stood to attention, and they're like all welling up. I'm like, don't look at them, don't look at them, don't look at them, you'll go. And his cycle buddies had all arranged to come, and they'd ridden from the start from the fire station. They'd all met at the fire station, and they'd rode and followed, because they're only going slow, and they'd followed the bike in formation, and they followed us all the way in. Police out bikes. The TL with the driver sweating his arse off with the no power steering, a couple of funeral cars, a brigade officer, a couple of police, and a load of cyclists in their gear that want to come and honour my brother. And then we've gone down the road, and one of the brigade officers has called everyone to attention. So all of Leicestershire and the fire service are there, and they've come to attention. And obviously my colleagues from my particular station are there, and I can remember it was just a sea of faces in uniform, and it's let me paint the picture, it's a kind of an avenue of trees. It's quite a beautiful street really, and you go down and it twists down, and it's just shoulder to shoulder, and there's my pal who's in the army, is in the reserves, and I spot him, and I spot Aaron, one of the firefighters on my watch, and he's there. And I look at him, he looks at me, his lip goes, my lip goes, and I'm just like, and we get out, and then we spoke about who should carry him into the church, and I said to the watch manager of Paul Station, no, you guys deliver him. You've got this. And they'd kind of worked through a couple of scenarios of Simon might want to do it. And I said, let me sort the family. You guys have got this. I trust you. And they were happy about that. They were chuffed. And God, they looked, their faces there. So the 2 guys at the front happened to be the 2 shortest guys, but they were 2 guys that were on duty with Paul. So they're bearing this responsibility of taking Paul into his final place and being there on duty with him the night he passed away, unable to help him when he needed it. that bad timing that we spoke about. And they're going through the ringer. They feel bad, and I'm like, look, we'll talk after. Let's deal with today. Let's do our best for Paul and the service that he loved. And they had, like I said, there was as many people outside that they couldn't get inside the church. And they had all the flags from all the different brigades as you walk through. And again, I'm not being morbid or maudlin or whatever, it was a fabulous spectacle of the fire service and what we're about as that uniform side of us. Of and that bond and the relationship that we have and what we create.
The thing that you hope it is, do you know what I mean? And then when you actually get to see it when it matters and you go, yeah, you know what? We really do support each other. Yeah. When it matters, we really are there.
And I guess arguably I would love to have been a part of, I've been over the fence.
Yeah.
Because it was great and everybody did a great job and they played their part. Played their part perfectly. And then we went to the creme, and then I helped with a couple of our other friends carry Paul into his final place. So let me just put a twist into there. So talking about death and burial and stuff like that, Paul had always said, "Oh, don't bury me. My dad's buried." He said, "Oh, don't bury me. I don't want a headstone or anything like that." He said, "Just cremate me and chuck my ashes off a mountain." So I'd mentioned this, away after Paul had passed away. And on his 50th birthday, me, Melanie, Albert, my wife, my daughter, my mum, who is in her late 60s, doesn't do a lot of physical activity. Don't have a go at me, mum, that's the truth. We trooped up Snowdon and chucked his ashes off the top.
Good arrows.
Some of his ashes.
God, but that was incredible.
Not all of his ashes. Yeah. And you know what? The day either side was the worst weather ever. So it's a busy, sunny day, bank holiday in May. His birthday, 28th of May. And we're halfway up Snowdon. And my son came as well. My son came along as well. And we're walking up. There's always a drama. We couldn't park at the top because we'd got there late and parked away, and we'd caught them up. You go. And we're carrying this pot with my brother's ashes in. I've got this. I'm carrying it. We're halfway up. "Hey up, mate. You all right?" Come and say, "Oh, mate, that's brilliant. I can't believe you're doing that." "Oh, I saw Melanie from the local town anyway. Know each other. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. See you later, mate. Bye. Oh, have a good day. Yeah, you have a good day." He was with his family. Get near the top, coming down. My old watch manager comes past me the other way. "Hey, mate, what are you doing?" "Oh, I'm come here to spread my brother's ashes." "Oh, brilliant, mate. Yeah, oh, great. Oh, I'm glad for you. Family, yeah, blah, blah, blah. See you later, mate. Yeah, ta-da." He's gone down the way. I said, "Oh, I've seen Alex on the way up." "Oh, righto." Yeah, and I spoke to him since. They'd met each other, and it's just that sliding doors.
Yeah,
if you've ever seen the film Sliding Doors.
Yeah, serendipitous events where you're
just
like,
brilliant.
Wow.
So we did all of that. So let's get back to the cycling and why and how it's kind of evolved. That was the question. We've gone maybe a little bit left field, but
No.
So they'd done a couple of rides and bits and bats, and they'd done the Chiefs Challenge, and on the Chiefs Challenge he chatted about, "I've got to chase the sun. You've seen this event. Oh, it's like 210 miles in a day. It's brilliant. We need to do it." I'm at work months afterwards, knock at the door. Two colleagues from work. "Hey mate, you all right? We need a word." And they're managers, so I'm thinking, I've messed up. What have I done wrong? They went, No, you've not done anything wrong. Cool. And they're pals of mine anyway, I've worked with them. And they're like, your brother was into like mad cycling and all that sort of crap, and we're into cycling as well. What we'd like to do is we'd like to set up a team, and we'd like to do Chase the Sun, because that's what your brother'd like to do. Firstly, we're asking, is it okay? Is it right with you and the family? And I think as a service we're very good like that we ask permission. And he said, and secondly, we want to know if you want to come. And I'm like, firstly, yes. Secondly, yes.
Wow.
Definitely. So where's that polar change come from?
Yeah.
And I'm all over it. I'm like, yeah, we're doing this. I'm doing this. I'm gutted that I'm doing it, but I'm going to do it for him. And again, you alluded to it earlier there, the prove it thing. So that was kind of one of Paul's catchphrases, and it was all around the whole bravado, puffing your chest out, sitting round the tea table, giving it Johnny big ones. Oh, mate, what, you've run a marathon? I could do a marathon, piece of piss.
Yeah.
Piece of piss, I could do that, no problem. What, climb Mount Kilimanjaro? Yeah, I could do that. And he'd end the conversation
I could do 100 press-ups on one go.
Yeah. And he'd go, prove it. So that's kind of where that came from. So I just thought...
Whereas he was like in reverse, though, because he actually just did it and then told people.
Yeah, but he maybe did it to himself.
Yeah.
Didn't he? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've seen this crazy ride you can do. I've seen this stupid canoe race that you can do. And when he first did it, they used to do it over 4 days. And then it's like, well, they're doing 24 hours. Oh, I'm having some of that. That's a bit of me. And that was where his motivation was. So I'm still me. I've still got me 80% ahead on. But I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. So we did chase the sun south, and we took 11 riders and we got 8 to the finish. The 3 that didn't quite make it did 150 and 175 miles respectively. So still in itself, an excellent showing. Hottest day of the year, 37 degrees I think, when we're going over the South Downs.
Of course it was.
Bumped into a load of his cycle buddies from the army as well, so I've kind of forged a relationship there as well. And I actually ride for him when they do that. They do a couple of annual rides across the country, and I've kind of I got invited, would you like to come for your brother? So I kind of go and represent him.
Yeah.
So I've kind of got dragged into that as well, which is kind of quite nice as well. And I've joined their little community, as it were.
You carry something specific with you as well.
Yeah. Melanie gave me my brother's bike as a gift, for which obviously I treasure very, very, very fondly. But shortly after my brother passed away and I got the bike, I got all set up one Sunday and thought, I'm going to go out for a ride on my brother's bike. And I'd been doing a bit of tweaking on it and making sure it was okay and got my setup and what have you. And I set off and had a bit of an off and fractured my elbow and cracked the frame, and I was absolutely gutted. And I got it repaired. The insurance company were like, we'll give you a new bike. No, that can't happen. It has to be this bike. And so I got the bike repaired, I paid for that, and when we entered into the whole chase the sun thing, I wanted to find a way to stop falling off the bike, because I thought that I was bad juju or something. And I asked Melanie for a little pot of Paul's ashes. Wow. So I've got like a little cardboard tube. I put it in a little sandwich bag to keep it away from the elements. And every time I go out on my bike, on his bike, I put that in my back pocket. And touch wood, I've had a couple of...
Firstly, you've not lost the bloody tube.
No, I've definitely not lost the tube.
I'll be checking my pocket every 5 minutes.
No. I know. I have a regime. You know, when you like, it's like getting prepared for a BA job. You know, I know where my fire hood is. I know where my gloves are. I know where my personal line is. I know where my, I have everything laid out. Fire service, we're prepped, aren't we? Trousers over leggings. When I go out on a bike ride, helmet, glasses, his ashes are in my helmet, ready. They go in my back pocket, and I'm ready. One day I forgot them and I went back. I can't, and I don't ever ride without his ashes in my back pocket. And they prove one of two things. Two, I think that's my guardian angel to not fracture my elbow again and come off. And so far so good. We've been okay. And I wanted to carry a bit of him on that Chase the Sun ride in the south, and I've since got to know the guys that run the event, and they actually accredited Paul with a finish for that ride. If you go back on the 2017 Chase the Sun South ride, you'll see my name and his name. And Ian, one of the guys through the Royal Engineers, got hold of the organiser who knows him and just explained the story and just said, look, he wanted to do the ride, he was unable to do it. His bike and some of him actually did the ride. So he actually got accredited with a completion for that ride, which obviously for me was...
Hit you like a train.
Yeah, it was a big motivation though, wasn't it? You know what I mean? I've kind of got quite involved with the cycling, and myself and some of the key players, we've created a team kit which emulates the fire engine, for those that have seen it. So it's got kind of the chevrons on the back that's kind of synonymous with the fire engine. It's now got the Battenberg, which is the livery on the side of a fire engine, nice and bright and red, with a few messages. And we've also tried to raise a couple of pounds through sponsorship for charity, which we've been successful, not successful, but we're plugging away, and every penny helps.
100%.
Yeah, so good motivation. We've since done Chase the Sun North. This year we went over and did Chase the Sun Island, which was an absolutely brutal day. And something I dealt with this year was I wasn't able to get to the end. And I think if I look back, a lot of that was my preparation. But if I'm being brutally honest, that was down to a number of things, really. I hadn't put the work in, if I'm being brutally honest.
Okay.
But that was for other reasons, through career work and stuff like that. I've just been so busy, and it just wasn't right. I maybe need to revisit that one. Don't like to do failure, but I can always come back again. And I think the decision to pull out when we got to 145 miles by reference, but it wasn't. The enjoyment was starting to ebb a little bit, and we were brutal headwinds. And even the guys that did finish said it was the hardest ride so far, and it wasn't even enjoyable for them. And with most sporting events, especially for endurance rides like that, if the enjoyment goes, it can sometimes be your last ride. And
you can completely kill it.
I didn't want it to be that. So yes, it was very, very difficult to say I'm tapping out and I'm done, but I wanted to be able to do it at a time that I was able to come back to cycling. The plan to revisit that one is definitely there. And we're also twinned with a fire service in Germany, and that's been on the back burner, but COVID's played a bit of a part in that we're actually we're looking to ride from brigade headquarters over to their headquarters, which is around 300 miles, but we'll do that over a couple of days. And I think it's good to push and break and push your limits and do those 200 milers, you have to remember why you do it and who you're doing it for. So that remembrance, and so you need to be riding along and talking about the individual, enjoy the ride and actually look at the vistas. And
don't let your ego get in the way of the purpose of doing it.
Yeah, so I think next year will be more of a social and include more people, because we've almost made it, by doing 200 miles, very exclusive, which we don't like to do, or we're certainly trying to break that down. And a couple of years ago, one of the rides I arranged was called the Prove It Ride, and it was an open ride to everybody in the fire service to see how far we could ride as a fire service in a 12-hour shift period. So we started at 7 in the morning and finished at 7 at night. And the idea was that you turned up on whatever bike you had and you set yourself a target. So we had a 17-mile loop around the county.
Oh, that's good.
And
so it wasn't like you get left behind somewhere. You can keep going around.
Yeah,
the
and
loop.
you would meet other people on the route. So you had a team of 4, you paid. I can't remember what we charge now. There was a nominal fee for charity.
Yeah.
And basically, you turned around and said, "Okay, it's 17 miles. I reckon I could do 3 laps." Okay, prove it.
Because people say that like time heals all wounds. Does it?
Blimey.
How do you feel differently now from a month after? And how long did it take for you to start? Because I remember you said, you know, when your partner was asking you, when Melanie was asking how you were getting on with it, how long did it take for you to separate yourself from worrying about everybody else to thinking, what do I think about it?
It was probably about a year. And this is kind of, I don't know whether it was a coping mechanism or this is how I dealt with life after. Constantly people will say to you, "You okay? You okay?" And I don't know, as a man, my response was, "Yeah, I'm fine. And I used to always sit on the sofa, but then I moved over to the armchair. And I would kind of sit there. My wife told me, like, you know, almost like I was in my own world. And you just sat there thinking, why? Oh, this is not right. Why? What could have been different? Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I was busy as well. I you know, with a bike ride, and you know, I kind of got immersed into that. I arranged a trip to France to watch the Tour de France, because we were mad keen on that, and this was something that we'd promised ourselves that we'd do, and through one thing and another, we should have gone in 2016 before he passed away, and we procrastinated a little bit too much on that and didn't go. So I was adamant that I would go. So in 2017, I went with a guy from my watch here, a guy that my brother used to work with, because he was like, "Oh mate, I'm all over that." And then Nick's son, the lad who worked here. So the 4 of us went there and we watched some of the tour stages, rode some of the rides, and obviously took my brother with me. And it was kind of to satisfy that I should have done this with my brother, and felt bad for not having done it. And that kind of all wraps up into the whole, you know, seize the moment, do what is right at the time, you know. And the garden that we created, I did some fundraising. I wanted to gift them as a team somewhere, a space to sit and reflect. So I did the whole engraved bricks, where you purchased the brick, you had what you wanted written on it. I incorporated that into like a memorial wall for my brother. So in a garden space in the fire station, created like a seating area, which, if you look down from the sky, emulates his brigade number, which was 62. And then there's a wall with a plaque dedicated to my brother, and then around that wall is all these brick slips, which kind of, you know, for the people that funded the project, got to kind of have their little part of it, as it were. So, yeah, doing all of that, building it with one of my good friends, Richard, gave up all his time to do that, which was really, really good. Arranging to go to France, arranging the ride to do the Chase the Sun. I kind of busied myself, and I used that as a distraction technique. And I guess quite similarly to when my dad passed, that, you know, I just immersed myself back into work. And, you know, I came back to work very quickly. Paul's funeral was on the Friday, and similarly to my dad, I went back to work on the Monday night. I went back to work on duty on a Monday night.
Was there any pushback from your service about your ability to do your job, and if you were mentally capable, if you truly had?
They were, I'm quite sure, aware. Overtly, I don't remember them saying that to me. They were very supportive. And interestingly, one of the first jobs that I was incident commander of when I came back on duty was an automatic fire alarm at one of the local hospitals. So the alarm had actuated in the building. As we're driving down the main trunk road to the hospital, I get a call from fire control telling me, "Si, just to let you know, mate, it's actually come up as the mortuary." Not the same hospital as Paul was in fairness. "If you don't want to go, don't worry, we'll send somebody else." And I was like, no, it's fine, but thanks for ringing. So I think everybody was spatially aware of what I'd kind of gone through. And
that's good of them.
What I, you know, like, kind of didn't need, or even may have come up in their thoughts. And in my head, I remember it quite vividly, and I was like, okay, come on, we got this. And you obviously, as the incident commander, you've got to go down and inspect the area where the alarm sounded to satisfy yourself that it is actually a false alarm, or if it's a fire, and then act upon that. And we walked down the corridor, and it narrowed, and about that narrowing corridor. And I was like, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And I walked down this corridor, and it just seemed to be so long, longer and longer and longer. Got down to the bottom, and Terry came with me, and I just got to the doors with the representative from the hospital, and I just went, I can't go in, because it would give me that memory of going to see my brother in hospital and having to identify him. But these were kind of tests that I think that I was setting myself.
Yeah.
Because I knew coming back to work, I was going to walk into an environment where Paul was a colleague. Not only was my brother, he was a work colleague.
That's what I'm saying. There's an anchor everywhere, isn't there? And in a way, there's like every touch point. Almost when we said that about those like phases of grief, that's one thing I wanted to speak to you about. Is like you think you pass one, but you don't. It's not like a sequential thing. You go backwards, and then things will just hit you, and you'll break into tears, and then you'll be angry, and then you move up and down that spectrum all the time. Surely,
mate. I guess I wanted to hit it head on. And I wanted to get back. I wanted to be a part of that team again. That team that had turned out to the funeral. I kind of owed it to them. And hence why, there's no... I live in Durham. Didn't used to live in Durham. I used to live locally. But I commute. And I haven't moved services because I feel indebted to the service for the support they've given me. But also part of me and my life is here.
Yeah.
It's just circumstantial that I don't live in the county, but I'm here to serve the people of this county, and with the fire service that I'm a part of, and I don't want to move. I feel very connected to this fire service through everything that's happened, and I think that's made it more important for me to stay. And then, interesting, now I'm a twisted sense of humour. Since my brother passed away, it's almost like my name has gone, because the amount of people that have called me Paul since at work, honest to God, and they're so apologetic, and I'm like, no mate, honestly, it's fine, because I think, I remember him every day. There's something that triggers something every day.
Really?
Whether I'm at a job, like a fire or something, and think, oh wow, Paul might have been here. Oh, I love this job. It's a great, it's a good fire. And again, that's that kind of gallows humour. And, fires are going to happen. We can't change that. But there's good fires and bad fires. Yeah. And those in the firefighting community will know what I'm talking about. But, incidents that we go to, notable incidents. We went to a big gas explosion, 50 houses damaged by a gas explosion. Unfortunately, we had a fatality. But I was the initial incident commander, and a very notable job that I was proud to be a part of, and delivered a service to the community that needed us on that day. And I think, when you build those jobs, and I can't leave that. But being called Paul, I've spoken to people and they're like, oh mate, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry. And I'm like, I was just thinking, whatever you do, don't say Paul. Anyway, Paul. And I'm like, no.
It's that whole don't think of a white elephant thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I find that, and he would have loved that. He would have loved that. You know what I mean? I think of him every day, and I think by people calling me Paul or Freudian slips and stuff like that. I think, well, they must be thinking of him, and then obviously all the cycling we've been doing, the generosity of the people donating to the charitable causes that we've been raising money for. It shows that it means something to them. And I might be wrong, but I truly believe that's the case. Yeah, I do believe that's the case.
When you said about going to France, how's Paul's death and sort of your reflections on it changed that whole, like you said, you should have gone to France and you didn't go to France? Has it changed your perspective on life at all, and the way you do things, the way you and your family go about things, or the way you plan things? Has it changed the way you think about stuff?
Yeah. I don't know whether the rest of my family agree with this, but I'm certainly for me, I want to do stuff. I don't want to leave it. So many people go, I do that when I retire and stuff like that. I'm happy to go and distance myself from my family, like say go to France and stuff like that. And it seems almost well, hang on a minute, you could have spent the weekend with your family or a couple of days with your kids and stuff like that. But you also need to satisfy your urges as well.
Yeah.
So there's that balance, isn't there, and that payoff. Yes, I miss them. I miss them like mad. I miss them when I'm at work.
Yeah.
But I've got to come to work to earn money. Got to come to work to satisfy the job that I like doing.
Yeah, I always say to people that you've got to live your life for you as well. Think about when people say I'm living my life for my kids, what example does that set for them in terms of what does my mum do? What does my dad do? My dad does something he loves. He's really proud of it. Yeah. And I want to find something that I'm really proud of as well.
I think our daughters are a similar age, aren't they? My daughter's 11, just gone into year 7. She's now gaining her independence and she's going out with her pals. I think my wife's coping with it particularly well because it's that releasing the apron strings almost. You know what I mean? But they're gaining their independence. But I've spoken to guys here about it, and every action that you do for your children is nurturing them to gain their independence. So don't remove that from them.
No.
Allow them to go and enjoy the day as long as they're safe, and you've shown them that, made them a little bit streetwise, as it were, you know what I mean, or you've given them the tools. I mean, we're so fortunate now, you used to come in when the street lights came on for your team. And you were never late, and you didn't have a phone, and you had a watch if you were lucky, and now you can, stalk them on Find My iPhone and all that sort of stuff, and we have these worries as parents because we know what people are like. Yeah. In the nicest possible way, we know what people are like, but yeah, it's changed me because I'm happy to go and do things that maybe remove me from my family. But I know that will make me a better, more content person.
100%.
So rather
than being the one that begrudges what you can't do because you feel like an obligation to stay.
That's why relationships fall down.
100%.
And living away as I do, it's probably helped mine and my wife's relationship. Probably more so her being on her own and away from me, but I'll take that one. But yeah, on the wall, I had an inscription put on, and it was by Buddha, and I'll probably get the words slightly wrong, but basically says that the problem is you think you've got time, but you haven't, because you don't know when it's going to end, and that was very apparent with Paul.
Yeah,
because only the week before I was sat with him having a drink. And, never in my wildest dreams did I think that that would be the last time I ever saw him. Didn't get to say goodbye, and I didn't get to do, and if somebody offers you the opportunity to do something, and I'm not saying be completely jack and go off and do your own thing and live a single life, but do what feels right for you, and explore those opportunities. And what you enjoy, and you can't enjoy everything that you or your partner, the crossover's not always there, is it?
Looking back at Paul's passing, if anyone was going through something similar now, what advice would you give them? Is there any way you direct them? Is there anything somebody said that you found particularly helpful, perhaps?
Yeah, and again, I'm very careful in kind of what's right for me. I didn't seek any professional help. I didn't take any medication. I had little or no time off work. That worked for me. The one thing that I was constantly asked, and I just played lip service to, was that, are you okay? And I had a long conversation with my brother's partner, Melanie, and we kind of came up with this thing of, how are you coping? Because okay is a closed question almost, isn't it? Because, when the phone goes, hi mate, how you doing? Yeah, I'm okay, you? Yeah. Not really that interested. Anyway, I need such and such. Can you do it? The prequels to the conversation they're just there. So we'd say, how are you coping today? Because with what I found with grief, certainly recently, I can't unfortunately recall too much going back to when my dad passed. But one day I'd be okay. But the day before I was fine. I didn't get upset. I didn't have those sad thoughts, and I didn't just burst into tears. So yeah, we would kind of say, how are you coping? And I spoke to somebody recently who'd lost a partner. It wasn't his partner. It was his dad. Sorry, it was his dad. And I said to him, "How are you coping?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I know you're not okay." I said, "I know that. That's a pointless question." I said, "How are you coping? How are you today?" And he goes, "I'm all right today." He goes, I'm busy. I've got stuff on. He goes, I like that. And I said, yeah, because tomorrow you might be totally shit and you want to just sit in a dark room and just be morose or go out. I'll go out on my bike.
Yeah.
Get out on my bike, get some headspace on his bike, got him in my back pocket. And I can, if you kind of think, we're starting to bitch and bite and nitpick at each other for nothing. We go and do an hour. We go and get sweaty and, empty my head. I ride along the coast, rides that I've done with my brother, and kind of feel him and feel okay again. Because it is good to remember, and you should never forget. And I was very careful not to do that. So, I guess advice to anybody, yes, if you feel that you're at the point where you've got nobody to talk to, then you have to seek professional advice. We're very fortunate, certainly in this fire service, and I imagine nationally, that our colleague and friend and our community is so tight. I've had so many conversations with colleagues. One of my watch pals, he lost his wife recently. So I went through that with him. He supported me, and we sat up chatting night after night and sat there sobbing because he knew my brother, and we cried. And I'm not embarrassed to say that. I don't think years ago in the late 80s when my dad died, to seem to be crying was almost a sign of weakness. Where now I just think it's just a true reflection, and it's certainly a vent for that built up sort of sadness within you. And then obviously his wife was really poorly, and sadly she passed away. So I wanted to be there to support him and have many conversations across the tea table and what have you. And I think that also fortifies our relationship and our team and our crew and how we act. Everything is just intermeshed.
Yeah.
And it makes us better. We know how we tick. I know more about the people I work in this shift system than I ever knew on 224.
God, yeah.
Because we live together. We're here all the time. You'd know that somebody had kids, but you maybe wouldn't know what their names were or how old. I'm not saying you have to know everything about everybody, but you just chat and they go off and they're talking, I'm just chatting to my daughter. Oh yeah, she's out drinking with her pals and this, that and the other. And everybody knows everybody. And I just think it's nice to know enough, don't they? And you create a massive bond.
It humanises people more as well. I would say if you knew more about somebody, you'd forgive them more on the days when they are not the best version of themselves.
And you learn more about them, and you learn their signs, don't you? Because they would learn, I'm sure, if you spoke to one of them, they'd say, oh, I know I've spoke to the watch manager here and he's like that. Yeah, you're definitely different since your brother passed. So we learn about each other, and that's probably made us a better team. And we'll understand those triggers and the differences. And we've done a lot of training in our service where mental health first aid at work, different other kind of we did. Dementia training as well, which is not necessarily about grief and all that sort of stuff, but it is about people, looking at signs and stuff. Yeah, we've done trim, and clearly it was inevitable that I was going to deal with a fatal in the line of work we were in. Having seen the last person was going to be, it was my brother. It wasn't something I was relishing, but I knew that I had to deal with it. So I was almost prepping myself for that scenario, and again, everyone's focus is on you as the in their eyes, that's some kind of superhero status, but you're there going to fix the world because they're in the position where they're having the crappiest day of their life and they've had to ring 999 and they just think that we can fix everything. And they're ever so appreciative and which is nice, and it's what gives you that buzz, but you can't go there and drop your hat. You've got to go in and you've got to deal with it, and whatever's happened to you has happened to you. And
I think we're now at a place where the fire and rescue services are realising that the more they can support the entire person and all their own mess ups and complexities and challenges, as we said at the beginning of our chat, you know, the more of that person can come to work, the best version of themselves will be it. And they want to stay here as well. You know, don't just join the job and go, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be, or nobody really cares about me. You know, people that want to come to the job, people want to stay in the job.
I think we're keen to ask why, aren't we?
Yeah.
We understand vertical loading. Yeah, so I've been able to manage that. Like I say, I did that whole year of knocking it off. I'm okay. And as I said, I didn't seek any professional advice, medication or anything else like that. But my wife asked me one day, "Are you okay?" And I just turned around and I went, "Do you know what? I'm not." And nothing changed. As in, I didn't do anything different, but I just recognised that I wasn't, and that was okay. You know, and like you say, Nick, who lost his wife, he would message me, "You all right, pal?" You know, yeah, no, you know, and those cursory little text messages, not too in depth. What you up to? Blah blah blah. You know, joined the world of Snapchat, and I constantly message my sister-in-law Melanie, and I see my brother's son growing up, and absolute spitting dabs with my brother, and that crushes me sometimes, but then I love it as well.
Yeah,
you know. So yeah, I guess me personally didn't seek any professional help, but I was very fortunate that I had a really good team around me, great service that supported me. They understood what I wanted. You know, if I'd have come in and done a day and gone, "No, I'm done," it wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah.
And like you said there, I think they're invested in us as individuals. They support us as individuals. And they're keen to make sure that we can execute our business for the person that is having a bad day.
Yeah.
And again, you know, that's what Paul would have wanted as well, because that was why he was in the job himself.
Love it. Mate, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I know we've sort of crossed paths in the past and thought about it, and you know, when you first approached and said about sharing it, it's a massive privilege to be part of that and to put some context around some of the challenges that people face. Because like you said, whilst your and Paul's situation is unique, it won't be the only one. There'll be a million different variations of somebody going through something very similar. And only through fleshing it out and reflection, if people can see yourself on the other side of this, they always say you need to see it to be it. And when people are going into that situation, they probably feel like it's a cave. You know, they probably feel like they're just heading straight into darkness. But if they can actually learn that it's actually just a really long tunnel and that someone has made it out the other side, not perfectly, not without a couple of scars, but they have found a way to exist after this, then my hope is that, and I know they will because I've made a whole page full of notes from our chat today, people will be able to take some learning from it. So I really appreciate that, brother.
Mate, thanks for your time. And, you know, just remember, you know, that, you know, certainly losing my brother was probably worse than losing my dad, if that makes sense. Probably because I'd lived my life maybe a little bit more. You're obviously closer to your siblings than maybe you are your parents. You know, my dad's been dead longer now than I knew him, which is a bizarre concept. I've now outlived, in my age, both my dad and my brother, which is weird.
Yeah.
Off the back of, obviously, my brother having some health issues that were undiagnosed, I've manifested ridiculous health anxieties that I've probably been to the doctors more in the last couple of years because my mind overruns my body, making me think, well, hang on, am I next?
There's so much about our own bodies we don't know as well.
No, and, you know, I spoke to the doctor and, you know, I've had some tests because of what happened to Paul. You know, I've had MRIs and I've been picked and poked and prodded and stuff. So, you know, the NHS have been absolutely fabulous with me as well. Genetically, I've not got anything that my brother had. And it was just seen as a one-off. But that doesn't stop your mind replicating pains and aches and, you know, do you think it's this, and the power of Google. And my advice is do not search it. Go to the doctor and say, my leg's hurting, what can you do about it? Because I've kind of gone, oh, my leg's hurting and because it's this, and this, and it's linked to my brother, you know. And the doctor said, I understand why you're saying that. But you're trying to rid your mind of, look, you're okay. You're getting on a little bit. I'm over 50 now, you know, and yeah, you're going to have those aches and pains, and I'm not getting any younger, and that's fine.
You still are young now in the grand scheme of things.
I guess so.
Yeah. Well, most people now, I mean, the average age of a male now is like 89, I think, or something like that. So you're only really just past halfway.
Well,
Let's hope.
Let's hope so. Yeah, and again, you know that you know, my dad made it to 43, my brother made it to 47. I'm now 51. You know, my gran made it to 101. So there's no reason, but it's allowing your mind to function and deal with all of that information and that kind of wave of emotion that comes with loss and grief. And well, that happened to him, so why shouldn't it happen to me? Because I am of my father. But it's so difficult. It's so difficult, and I don't have all the answers. I know that. I've got great support. The fire service offers me that. My immediate watch members offer me that support, as I would like to do to them. In the wider world of the fire service, I think we're all there to support each other. We're a little bit wiser to the vertical loading of the incident types that we go to. You know, only last night I dealt with an incident where unfortunately somebody passed away, and making sure that I was the incident commander, making sure that the family member that was there was okay, that the person was dealt with respect. I made sure that the appropriate services were brought in so the incident was dealt with. But then I've also got the psychological effects that may well have on the team that I'm looking after. That's all in your mind. And then right at the back, that's hiding away while I'm at work in my superhero firefighters kit, is I'm dealing daily with the fact that I've lost my brother, and it's nearly 6 years now. And like I said to you, every day, without fail, even if that's a crap cup of tea, he'd have took the mickey out of me for that cup of tea. Stupid things like that. You know, we've been having family days out, and it'd be like, oh, Paul would have loved it here. You know, when we went and chucked his ashes off the top of the mountain. Yeah. He would have loved being at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And that's what allows me to function and find what works for you and go with it. And you'll get it wrong. And then find another way and another mechanism of dealing with what you're going through. But you will get there.
Yeah.
And it will be fine. And ultimately, you ain't changing it.
No.
So you've got to get on board.
Controllables.
Yeah. So that's what I do. It works for me.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you, my man.
Thank you, Pete.
The Firefighters Podcast is a global podcast seeking to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operators. Through a series of wide-ranging conversations celebrating those within our sector, we seek to encourage and support this incredible group of people. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield, and I speak with individuals from all walks of life who I sincerely believe can add value to or develop those who have chosen this life path. Please support your emergency services wherever you are in the world, and thank you for listening.